Chapter 3104. As Yang Budong's figure appeared, the divine level order around the vast sun god mountain seemed to be attracted and gathered towards the sword in his hand. Rumble, the power of the sword grew stronger and stronger. It was like an eternal sun that illuminated the world. Even Lin Sun couldn't help but be surprised by the aura it released. But then he smiled and said, "Even the treasure formed by the divine level origin of order has been used. It seems that the Yang clan really doesn't have many trump cards left. It's enough to kill you." Yang Budong's eyes burned like raging flames, filled with hatred and killing intent. As he spoke, he swung his sword. This sword was like the sun that illuminated the world. The raging sword essence turned into endless light that melted the void and burned everything. An eternal realm being using the treasure formed by the divine level origin of order to fight desperately. How terrifying was that power! Lin Sun experienced it now. At this moment it was like being in the furnace of all ages. There was white and dazzling sword essence everywhere. That kind of power could easily burn a world and kill billions of living beings. Lin Sun didn't dare to be careless. He activated his cultivation to the extreme. Clang! He swung the Taoist sword and slashed out. This sword was imprinted with the nirvana? Profound meaning. Two completely different sword essences collided. With a bang, the world seemed to be unable to bear that kind of power. Unparalleled sword chi spread and stirred up all directions. It was too terrifying. However, what Yang Budong couldn't accept was that his sword was still dissolved. It should be known that the sword in his hand was formed by the vast sun origin of order. It was supported by his eternal realm cultivation. That kind of power could even injure a creation realm being. If you can defend this sect in 10 seconds, I will leave immediately without a second word. Lin Sun said leisurely. He held the Taoist sword and leaped forward. 10 seconds. This was a kind of announcement. For Yang Budong, it was more like a kind of humiliation. He was furious. He swung the sword in his hand and attacked. Boom! The vast sun origin of order was like a mighty torrent of the Milky Way. It was drawn by the sword and surged through the world. The sword essence was so strong that it had reached an incredible level. However, Lin Sun was defeated by nirvana. Profound meanings were used to control the Tao swords, but they were even more powerful. Dang! In the first breath, the two swords intersected, and the light of the Tao of order spread all over the sky. Yang Budong's figure was shaken and staggered backward. Lin Sun didn't talk nonsense at all. He took advantage of the situation and rushed forward. His tall figure was steaming with light that could illuminate the sky. The Taoist sword in his hand slashed out again and again. Each slash had the power to split the world and sweep away the mountains and rivers. The profound meaning completely suppressed the power of the order of the blazing sun. Under such a blow, Yang Budong was like a duckweed that had fallen into a storm, and he suffered an unprecedented blow. In his field of vision, all he could see was the mighty and sweeping sword intent. Lin Sun's figure was like a boundless and tall ruler. Every blow of Lin Sun shocked his mind, and his whole body suffered unprecedented pressure. Puff! On the fifth breath, Yang Budong suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. Although he had blocked all of Lin Sun's attacks, the impact he had suffered was too great, and it had already caused him to suffer heavy injuries. How is this possible? How is this possible? Yang Budong's eyes almost split open, and his heart was in turmoil. He was unable to imagine how Lin Sun, who had only surpassed the initial stage of justice, could be so heaven-defying. One had to know that he was at the perfection stage of justice, and he had utilized the power of the order of the blazing sun. Under such circumstances, he was still able to fight an existence at the creation realm. But now, he was suffering from Lin Sun's suppression. At the same time, the secret realm in the depths of the blazing sun god mountain was in chaos and turmoil. Hurry! Hurry up and move! Notify the immortal realm elders of the clan. Order them to split up and bring all the clansmen into the great Yang-wheel. This is the order of the Patriarch. Hurry! Various shouts resounded. The entire Yang clan started moving, and there were figures fleeing in panic everywhere. Many people's faces were filled with astonishment and confusion. What was happening? Could it be that a calamity that threatened the survival of the clan had occurred? Perhaps it was because they had been at peace for too long, and they were used to a life of being superior and ruling over all living beings. When calamity descended, most of the Yang clan members were unable to adapt in a short period of time. They couldn't imagine that in the entire world, who dared to oppose their Yang clan. As a result, when all of this happened before their eyes, they were so shocked and confused. They even found it hard to accept. Their Yang clan. How could it be shaken by someone? How could it be? Even clan leader Yang Tsangxing was unable to imagine that this calamity would be so serious at the very beginning. But as Yang Huatian was killed and the heaven-suppressing formation was taken away, he felt that something was wrong. Anger? Shock? Difficult to accept? All of these were no longer important. Yang Tsangxing only knew that if he didn't act quickly, the Yang clan that had stood in the ninth heaven for countless years would very likely be destroyed today. Once this happened, he, Yang Tsangxing, would be the greatest sinner of the clan. Even if he died, he would be nailed to the pillar of shame. Was there any hope for the Yang clan to survive? Yang Tsangxing wasn't sure, because he could see that even if he used the power of the Order Origin, ancestor Yang Budong was still suffering from Lin Sun's suppression. All of this was like a nightmare. Yang Tsangxing didn't dare to believe it was real. But regardless of whether he believed it or not, all of this was happening. He could only prepare in advance. Clan leader, apart from those clansmen who are guarding the various territories, everyone in the clan who is currently in the vast Sun God Mountain has been settled in the great Yin-Yang wheel. A hurried voice was heard. Yang Tsangxing's tense state of mind suddenly relaxed a little. Bring the great Yin-Yang wheel over. The old servant who came to report hurriedly handed over a palm-sized treasure that was half black and half white. It was as round as a plate. Yang Tsangxing put away the treasure, gritted his teeth and said, "Go send a message, inform the clansmen who are guarding the major territories, tell them to flee as far as possible." In the end, his heart couldn't help but be filled with unspeakable sorrow. Since when had their Yang clan fallen to such a state? They were the eternal God race. They were eternal existences that looked down on the heavens. They were existences that made billions of living beings and forces in the world not dare to provoke or invade. But now a Yang Tsangxing couldn't help but clench his fists, trying to control his emotions that were about to go out of control. At this moment, outside the gate of vast Sun God Mountain, on the ninth breath, Yang Budong, whose body was cracked and bleeding, suddenly let out a loud shout that sounded like a madman. "Lin Sun, I will kill you!" His skinny body suddenly started burning, his bloodshot eyes filled with hatred. Boom! He stretched out his arms, eternal laws surging out of his body, releasing and burning to the limit as he pounced towards Lin Sun. He wanted to die with Lin Sun. When an Eternal Realm expert didn't even care about his life, how terrifying was that power? Lin Sun had seen it before. Back then, in the Infinite Star Sea outside Yuan sect, Fokananda of Dhyana sect burned himself and exhausted the power of Brahma Lotus Lamp, the most precious treasure of Dhyana sect. He was so powerful that even Lin Sun felt a fatal threat. And now, this was the second time he saw an Eternal Realm expert go all out. It was still so terrifying, so heart-shaking. However, Lin Sun, who had the first experience and was already prepared, did not retreat. He looked at Yang Budong quietly and waved his sleeve. The gate of exile was suddenly dangerous. It lay between heaven and earth in front of Lin Sun. The gate of exile, which covered an area of thousands of feet, was like the gate to hell, opened at this moment. It was also at this moment that Yang Budong rushed over. He didn't even have time to dodge, and his whole body rushed into the door of exile. It seemed that it was no different from walking into a trap. Boom! The gate of exile shook violently. Yang Budong was, after all, an eternal realm expert. The power he released was so terrifying that the gate of exile suffered a serious impact. But in the blink of an eye, it calmed down. The 10th breath, Lin Sun looked calm and said softly. He had used the gate of exile to deal with Jiannan. Now, he was just using the same trick again. As he spoke, Lin Sun grabbed the air, and the Taoist sword formed by the origin of the Order of the Sun fell into his hand. It was as if he had caught the brightest light in time. Yang Qiantian and Yang Budong are no longer here. The Sky Suppression Formation and the Order of the Sun have also been subdued. Your Yang clan really doesn't have any other trump cards? Lin Sun looked at the distant vast sun god mountain. And Yang Tsangxing, who had seen all of this, was completely drowned in fear. He chose to retreat almost immediately. A long time ago, the ancestors of the Yang clan had opened a path of retreat in their territory. This path of retreat was an ancient altar. As long as one stepped on it, they could instantly teleport away from the 9th heaven. It was just that countless years had passed. As one of the eternal god clans of the 9th heaven, the Yang clan had never encountered any danger, so this path of retreat was almost forgotten by the clansmen. But as the leader of the clan, Yang Tsangxing certainly wouldn't forget. He teleported, and in a few flashes, he arrived in the depths of the forbidden area of the clan. An ancient altar stood there, covered in dust for a long time. Without any delay, Yang Tsangxing immediately rushed towards the ancient altar. As long as he escaped to the ancient altar, the lives of everyone in the Yang clan could be preserved, and they were destined to rise again in the future. But the moment Yang Tsangxing took a step forward, a terrifying power of order instantly spread out, locking the entire area. Yang Tsangxing's figure was like an insect that had fallen into a spider web. He maintained the movement of taking a step forward, unable to move at all. His expression completely changed. His heart sank to the bottom, and his body felt cold. This was the power of the Order of the Sun. Yet now, it had destroyed the only hope of their Yang clan leaving with their lives. It seems that your Yang clan has really reached the end of the road. Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air. Looking at the ashen-faced and dejected Yang Tsangxing, he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Previously, he had always been on guard against other trump cards in the Yang clan. After all, this was an eternal god clan that had accumulated for countless years. It was hard to guarantee that they didn't have other powerful trump cards. But now, it seemed that he had thought too much. Chapter 3105. When he saw Lin Sun's figure in his field of vision and heard Lin Sun's words, Yang Tsangxing felt an indescribable grief and indignation ferment and spread in his heart. At this moment, he inexplicably remembered something from a long time ago. Back then, the master of the core dimension came to the 9th heaven and once said that when the immortal supreme Tao path appeared, it would definitely break all previous understandings and subvert the imagination of the world. In the past, whether it was the Yang family or the other eternal gods, they all scoffed at these words and didn't take them seriously at all. Because no one thought that the status of the eternal gods could be shaken and subverted. Even if the immortal supreme Tao path, that had never appeared since ancient times really appeared, it wouldn't be enough. But now who dared to think that the master of the core dimension was exaggerating back then? The inherent understanding of the past was destined to be broken. What couldn't be shaken in the past would eventually be subverted. Looking at the Yang family today, one could see how powerful Lin Sun, who had embarked on the immortal supreme Tao path and had now achieved eternal Tao, was. His combat power had already broken all previous understandings. His appearance already had the power to subvert the eternal gods. Thinking of this, Yang Tsangxing was only left with sorrow and helplessness. If only he had known, the cruelest thing in the world was undoubtedly the word regret. When people were on the verge of despair, they couldn't help but feel regret. They couldn't help but think that if they had done this in the past, the outcome might have been different now. And regretful things were destined to be irreversible and rewritten. This was the cruelest part. Lin Sun, the ninth heaven isn't something you can shake. Whether it's my Yang family or the other eternal gods, even if you defeat them one by one, don't forget that there are eternal gods everywhere in the world. Don't forget, if the ancestors who went to the Kunlun ruins knew what happened in the ninth heaven, what do you think the outcome would be? Yang Tsangxing said in a hoarse voice. Lin Sun said indifferently, if the divine order is gone, can the eternal gods still be called the eternal gods? Yang Tsangxing's heart twitched violently. Lin Sun's words hit the nail on the head. In the ninth heaven, there are eternal gods and immortal gods. The difference between the two is that eternal gods have divine orders, while immortal gods don't. It could be said that the divine order was the root of the eternal gods. Without the root, even if the clan could survive, it would not be worthy of the word eternal. In fact, without the divine level order, there was no chance for the birth of an eternal realm expert, let alone restoring its former glory. Lin Sun said, in the past countless years, your Yang family has ruled the world and made hundreds of millions of creatures kneel under your feet. As the patriarch, you should know best how many things your Yang family has done in the past countless years. It's even to the extent that even if the living beings in this world were to be destroyed by your Yang clan, they wouldn't dare to hate or resent you, so they naturally wouldn't dare to take revenge. Of course, all of this is in the past. No matter how many more things happen, your Yang clan doesn't have to care at all. However, if the world were to find out about the calamity your Yang clan has encountered today, guess what would happen next? Hearing this, Yang Tsangxing's expression was pale, as if he had lost his parents. Was there even a need to think about it? When the great tree that was the Yang clan fell, the countless living beings that dared not voice their anger in the past would definitely seize the opportunity to take action and carry out the most intense revenge against the Yang clan. There was no need for Lin Sun to make a move. The Yang clan members scattered all over the world would become stray dogs that everyone wanted to beat up, and their fates would be miserable. Lin Sun continued, as for those powerful figures who went to the Kunlun ruins that you mentioned, if they weren't afraid of the threat of the Great Silence lifespan tribulation, how could they have left so early? Since they've left, it won't be easy for them to return in a short period of time. After a pause, he looked at Yang Tsangxing. Let me ask you, to those old fellows, is it more important to fight for a chance to go to the ruins of Tao and survive, or is it more important to rush back to the ninth heaven and clean up a mess that can't be salvaged? Without waiting for Yang Tsangxing to speak, Lin Sun had already replied, to you, of course revenge for your Yang clan is more important. However, to those old fellows, even if they hate me to the bone, they are destined to not give up that chance to fight for a chance because of a moment of pain. Yang Tsangxing said in a hoarse voice, why did you say so much? Just to tell me that my Yang clan is finished? Lin Sun said, wrong, I just wanted to see if you would truly despair. Now it seems that you have another trump card that you haven't used yet. Otherwise, I'm afraid you wouldn't have listened to me so patiently. Yang Tsangxing was stunned, and he suddenly shouted, Lin Sun, you will die a horrible death. At the same time, an incomparably terrifying power suddenly spread out from his body. Boom! In the next moment, Yang Tsangxing's body exploded. Even the blazing sun's order power that imprisoned this world was impacted and collapsed like a tide. Lin Sun's figure immediately retreated. He saw a will manifestation that was extremely powerful and filled with monstrous power. It was far from being comparable to an eternal figure in the transcendent realm. Changsheng! The will manifestation let out an angry voice. He was thin, dressed in a green robe, and his hair was gray. He looked like a young man, but his eyes were filled with a thick and boundless aura of time. Yang Chaotian. A boundless realm existence of the eternal God clan. The one that appeared in time was Yang Chaotian's will manifestation. Boundless realm. This was a supreme existence that had at least gone through the great silence, fateless tribulation once. He was a mighty figure that stood at the ultimate stage of the eternal Tao. Even though it was just a will manifestation, Lin Sun still felt the oppressive aura. His body couldn't help but tense up. Such a powerful aura. His pupils constricted. Lin Sun, so it's you. After a while, Yang Chaotian's will manifestation looked at Lin Sun with a cold gaze. He actually recognized Lin Sun immediately. He looked at the ancient altar not far away. It was the path of retreat, left by the Yang clan's ancestor. Then he looked at the Taoist sword in Lin Sun's hand that was formed from the blazing sun's order power. How could he not know that the Yang clan was facing an unprecedented crisis? How could he not know that if it wasn't for the moment of life and death, why would Yang Tsangxing use the will manifestation he left behind? I can see that you're the Yang clan's greatest trump card. Lin Sun was very calm at this moment. This was normal. If he was an eternal boundless realm expert, he would also choose to leave one of his will manifestations behind to protect the clan when he went to the Kunlun ruins. Haha, do you still think you have a chance of surviving? Yang Chaotian's will manifestation was so angry that it laughed. He directly made a move. He stretched out his hand and grabbed. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Countless rule power condensed into a spear and stabbed at Lin Sun. It was very terrifying. When he stretched out his hand and grabbed, the rule power emerged and was condensed into a Taoist weapon at will. Boom! The spear swept through the air and released a power that was beyond imagination. Lin Sun didn't dare to be careless. The aura on his body also roared like a boiling cauldron. He attacked with the Taoist sword formed from the blazing sun's order power. Bang! In the earth-shattering collision, Lin Sun was pushed back hundreds of meters. Wherever he passed, the void collapsed and a straight crack appeared. The aura on his body surged and he gasped. His expression became solemn. Although Yang Chaotian was only a will manifestation, the power that belonged to the boundless realm was far above the transcendent realm. Kill! Yang Chaotian roared and waved his spear. The eternal Tao light on his body pierced through the sky and earth. It surged and released as if a god was angry. Obviously, the Yang clan's encounter made him extremely angry, so he didn't hold back when he attacked. Boom! Lin Sun summoned his Greenwood Taoist physique without hesitation. He used it to activate the abyssal sword cauldron while his main body controlled the Taoist sword formed from the blazing sun's order power. They attacked Yang Chaotian together. The battle erupted, causing this expanse of the heavens and the earth to instantly fall into a state of collapse. Everything seemed to have fallen into chaos. Sword chi and the shadows of spears filled the surroundings, and terrifying sounds of collisions rumbled like thunderclaps from the 9 heavens. In a flash, boom! Lin Sun and his Greenwood Taoist physique were both pushed back, and their expressions became more and more solemn. On the other hand, Yang Chaotian's will manifestation became even more powerful and terrifying. Millions of rule divine chains hung down from its body, and the spear in its hand was extremely sharp. Kill! Yang Chaotian attacked again. Just his aura alone could easily crush all experts below the eternal realm. Even ordinary people in the transcendent realm would be intimidated by it. Even though Lin Sun's battle prowess was incomparably heaven-defying, he still felt extremely strained when he used his Greenwood Taoist physique. He paled in comparison. Rise! Seeing Yang Chaotian attack, Lin Sun displayed his Scarlet Fire Taoist physique without hesitation and attacked Yang Chaotian's will manifestation together. But it still didn't work. The power that Yang Chaotian possessed belonged to the boundless realm. Even if it was just his will manifestation, the power it released was unimaginably powerful. In just a moment, Lin Sun and his 3 clones were suppressed again. Damn it, this is just a will manifestation. How can it be so powerful? Lin Sun's expression changed slightly. He realized that he had underestimated the power of the boundless realm. This kind of existence who had gone through the great silence fateless tribulation was not as simple as he had imagined. For example, this Dharma form of will was only condensed by the power of the great way of Yang Xuantian's original body and was imprinted with a strand of his willpower. However, its power was so powerful that it completely exceeded Lin Sun's expectations. However, Lin Sun was not afraid or panicked because of this. Boom! In the next moment, he displayed his platinum Taoist physique and attacked Yang Chaotian's will manifestation together. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun managed to resist Yang Chaotian's extremely terrifying attack and extricated himself from the state of being suppressed. He wanted to counterattack, but he couldn't do it for a while. At best, it was only a situation where they were evenly matched. Thinking about it, his 4 clones were not weaker than his original body. Now that he and his original body went all out, they could only be evenly matched. From this, it could be seen how powerful Yang Chaotian's will manifestation was. There will be more updates tonight. Chapter 3106. While Lin Sun was shocked, Yang Xiantian's Dharma form was also shocked and furious. With the power of his Dharma form, not to mention suppressing existences in the law-defying realm, he would even have the upper hand against creation realm cultivators. But now, his opponent was merely a young man at the early stage of the law-defying realm, yet they were evenly matched. Admittedly, Yang Xiantian had used 4 clones to attack at the same time. But he was a boundless realm cultivator. Even if it was just a strand of willpower, ordinary law-defying realm cultivators would not have much of an advantage, no matter how many of them there were. But it was obvious that Lin Sun was different. Kill! Yang Xiantian's might was becoming more and more terrifying. The Tao techniques and power he used were unimaginably terrifying. An existence like him could refine the rules for his own use and disregard the rules of the heavens. If he wanted to, he could easily destroy a great world. At the same time, Lin Sun was also going all out. His eyes were bloodshot as he went all out and unleashed all the techniques he had. This was the first time he had encountered such a terrifying opponent since he stepped into the eternal realm, but it also aroused his fighting spirit and fighting spirit. Kill! The 2 of them fought fiercely. Both of them wanted to get rid of the other as soon as possible. They fought until the sky darkened, causing the vast sun god mountain to shake and the divine level rules that covered the surroundings to roll violently. This situation lasted for a full quarter of an hour. Seeing that he could not defeat Lin Sun after a long time, Yang Xiantian could not help but feel anxious. He was only a Dharma form of willpower, so the power he grasped would only continue to be consumed and weakened. The longer this dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. On the other hand, because Lin Sun was using his original body, his power was so strong that it could not be compared to a Dharma form of willpower, so he could fight for a long time. Kill! Realizing this, Yang Xiantian suddenly began to fight with all his might. He did not care about the possibility of being injured and used all his strength to swing his spear. Rumble! The rules released by the spear set off a sky full of Tao light. When it swept out, it made Lin Sun and his clone feel extremely uncomfortable and almost coughed up blood. This old thing is going all out. Lin Sun took a deep breath and no longer hesitated. He suddenly used the Tao sword in his original body's hand to perform the time blade. Swoosh! Although the brilliant sword aura was blocked by Yang Xuantian as it slashed down, the time power it emitted still swept past Yang Xuantian's Dharma. Yang Xiantian's aura weakened visibly. But that was it. The power of the blade of time was quickly neutralized. Yang Chaotian was a boundless realm existence after all. It was very difficult for the power of time to truly sever the power of laws and might that he grasped. However, Yang Chaotian was greatly shocked by this attack. How could he not know how terrifying this divine ability of time was? Yang Yang Xian Xian Sword Xian Tian? But now he was only in the form of Dharma of will. Under the siege of Lin Sun and the 4 doppelgangers, it was very easy for him to be hit by such a magical power. However, the current situation made it impossible for Yang Chantian to think so much. Tianzai. How could Lin Sun waste such an opportunity? He asked the other 4 doppelgangers to pin down Yang Xuantian, while he himself kept striking with his sword. Each strike was faster and more terrifying than the previous one. With his current cultivation base, he could only last less than a quarter of an hour in such a battle. Lin Sun would not waste any time. He saw countless dense strands of sword qi crisscrossed both horizontally and vertically, and they tore open countless horrifying rifts in the heavens and the earth. Coupled with the restraint and siege of the 4 Taoist bodies, Lin Sun's sword qi was blocked and dissolved by Yang Chaotian, but many of them still hit Yang Chaotian. Pu. Sword marks appeared on Yang Xuantian's will dharma aspect. With every sword mark, the power of his will dharma aspect suddenly weakened a little. When the sword marks appeared one after another, Yang Chantian's dharma idol was like a deflating balloon, and his power was visibly weakening. This made him shocked and angry. He couldn't believe that even if he attacked with all his strength, it wouldn't work because Lin Sun's 4 doppelgangers would block all his killing moves. Lin Sun's dharma would take advantage of this and launch a fierce attack with the Taoist swords. Under such circumstances, more and more sword marks appeared on his dharma idol, and his aura became weaker and weaker. Go! In the end, Lin Sun suddenly shouted. His dharma idol and the 4 Taoist bodies rushed forward with all their strength. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion resounded. Yang Chaotian's injured and weak dharma idol suffered a fatal blow. It suddenly became illusory and blurry. It rolled violently and showed signs of collapsing. At this moment, Yang Chaotian roared angrily, "Lin Sun, when my dharma idol returns, it will be the time of your death." His words were filled with incomparable hatred, and they resounded through the sky. Then, his avatar exploded and disappeared into thin air. Seeing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. He felt completely relaxed. He had consumed a lot of energy in the battle, and he was almost at his limit. He had to admit that the boundless realm was too powerful. It was just a dharma idol, but the power it possessed was far beyond that of a normal dharma idol. This was also Lin Sun's most difficult battle since stepping onto the eternal path. Fortunately, he still won in the end. Feeling the signs of weakness all over his body, Lin Sun decided without hesitation to recuperate in this vast sun god mountain for the time being. He would go to the Ji clan after he recovered his cultivation. Whoosh! Before long, the vast sun order covered the surroundings of vast sun god mountain, just like before. But no one knew that the vast sun god mountain had already changed owners. Naturally, no one knew that on this day, the eternal god clan's Yang clan had been conquered by Lin Sun alone. The 2 eternal realm elders, Yang Chaotian and Yang Bai, as well as the clan leader, Yang Tsangxing, were all dead. Even the heaven suppression formation and the vast sun order had been completely subdued by Lin Sun. The boundless realm Yang Chaotian's dharma idol had also been destroyed by Lin Sun. For the countless living beings in this boundless territory with vast sun god mountain as the center, everything that happened today was too shocking and terrifying. Although they hadn't seen the scene of the battle, the explosion of the vast sun order's power, and the fluctuations caused by the battle between Lin Sun and the 2 eternal realm experts, Yang Chaotian and Yang Bai, had affected this boundless territory. No matter how high or low their cultivation was, they all felt the destructive aura that was like a natural disaster pervading the world, and it made their hearts tremble. Even the stupidest person realized that on this day, an unprecedented battle had occurred in the vast Sun God Mountain where the eternal God clan's Yang clan resided. Who on earth is so daring? For countless years, the Yang clan has been like the ruler of the 9 heavens. When has the Eternal God clan ever encountered such a thing? When the battle ended, all sorts of cries and uproars sounded in this boundless territory. The Yang clan had ruled this territory for countless years, and made billions of living beings bow down to them. No one dared to disobey them. No one had expected that on this day, someone would actually dare to attack the Yang clan's lair. There were also many forces subordinate to the Yang clan that sent experts to approach vast Sun God Mountain at the first possible moment in an attempt to gather information. However, what they saw was an expanse of desolate mountains and rivers. Everything was withered and destroyed, and there were horrifying traces of battle everywhere. It was simply like the ruins left behind after a battle between the gods, completely devoid of life. However, when they noticed that the undamaged vast Sun God Mountain still stood towering between the heavens and the earth, and when they sensed the fluctuation of energy that belonged to the order of the vast sun still pervaded the air, besides heaving sighs of relief, they also felt an indescribable sense of loss. The Yang clan is an Eternal God clan in the end. How could they possibly be shaken? Those invaders have probably been killed a long time ago. Many people sighed with emotion. This was normal. Since the ancient times until now, the Eternal God clan had never been shaken. I thought a shocking change would occur today, but now it seems like. There were also people with complicated feelings. After being ruled by the Yang clan for countless years, who hadn't thought about overthrowing the Yang clan. But reality was cruel in the end. Even if a battle had erupted today, the Yang clan's vast Sun God Mountain was still there, and the order of the vast sun that covered the vast Sun God Mountain was still there. Just like in the countless years of the past, it had never fallen. I wonder who challenged the Yang clan's forces today. Even in death, no one knows who it was. Quickly go back and spread the news. Many spies came to the vast Sun God Mountain, then left in a hurry. No one knew that in the vast Sun God Mountain, everything had changed. Late at night, in the secret realm in the depths of the vast Sun God Mountain, Lin soon woke up from meditation. His cultivation had recovered to its peak. He waved his sleeve. A palm-sized wheel that was half black and half white appeared. Great Yin Yang Wheel. This was a treasure found among Yang Tsangxing's belongings. This treasure formed a world of its own. Before Lin Sun killed his way into the vast Sun God Mountain, everyone in the Yang clan was placed in this treasure. Of course, this also included the wealth that the Yang clan had accumulated over countless years. When Lin Sun refined the Great Yin Yang Wheel, he instantly controlled the life and death of the Yang clan members placed in this treasure. However, this time, Lin Sun still didn't kill them all. Just like how he dealt with the 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven, he only killed those who had stepped into the immortal realm and destroyed all the Emperor Realm cultivators. As for the other Yang clan members, he planned to let them all go when he left the vast Sun God Mountain. At that time, all living beings in the world who had been controlled and enslaved by the Yang clan for countless years would immediately launch the most bloody revenge against the Yang clan members. In the end, Lin Sun didn't care how many members of the Yang clan would survive. Even if they survived, without the clan, without the divine order, they were destined to never rise again in the future. What Lin Sun really cared about was the wealth that the Yang clan had accumulated over countless years. More updates. Chapter 3107. Over the years, Lin Sun's vision has become more and more picky. Especially after achieving the eternal Tao, ordinary immortal level treasures can no longer enter his eyes. Moreover, he has killed the 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven one by one, and has also killed many eternal realm existences. Every time, he obtained all kinds of rare treasures. Divine materials, medicinal pills, and other such treasures were even more common. But when he saw the wealth accumulated by the Yang clan for countless years, Lin Sun was still stunned for a moment, and his eyes couldn't move. Those treasures were piled up into hills, including rare divine materials, divine medicines, and other kinds of rare treasures. They were all piled up in different categories. Starting from the treasures suitable for the cultivation of the lower 5 realms, there are treasures suitable for the immortal realm, the saint realm, the quasi-emperor realm, the emperor realm, and the immortal realm. The treasures for each realm can be called the best in the world. The 9th heaven is an eternal world, full of beautiful mountains and rivers, far from comparable to other heavens. For example, the vast Sun God Mountain, where the Yang clan is located, is the top paradise in the 9th heaven. Even without the help of external treasures, the cultivation of cultivators can improve by leaps and bounds. Coupled with the wealth accumulated by the Yang clan, it can be imagined that the first step of cultivation of the Yang clan is far beyond the vast majority of people in the world. Soon, Lin Sun's eyes were attracted by one of the hills piled up with treasures. This hill is obviously much smaller, but it is piled up with treasures needed for the cultivation of the eternal realm. 5 elements divine pill, 9 transformations void powder, chaotic jade pill. Lin soon noticed that every kind of medicinal pill was sealed in a jade box. There were more than 10 kinds, each of which was refined from various rare and precious eternal medicines, and had incredible magical effects. These were all collected by Lin Sun at once. Then there were thousands of kinds of eternal divine materials, which were specially used to quench the eternal Tao soldiers. Each of them had amazing divinity, and was filled with extremely terrifying aura. However, in contrast, these eternal divine materials were not as good as the eternal divine materials that Lin Sun refined in the ultimate ruins, which could be used as weapon embryos. But no matter what, these thousands of eternal divine materials were still priceless, because no one would sell them in the outside world. Clatter. Lin soon waved his sleeves and put away the eternal divine materials. After that, there were some precious treasures related to the eternal Tao. There were mysterious Tao bones that were branded with the aura of eternity, brocade books on jade that were written with the insights of cultivators in the eternal realm, and so on and so forth. As Lin Sun sorted through the treasures, he couldn't help but sigh inwardly. As expected of the eternal gods, they were simply too rich. In the end, besides the treasures that were suitable for his cultivation, he put away all the other treasures, intending to give them to his friends and relatives to use in the future. According to his calculations, just these treasures that he couldn't use were equivalent to the total wealth of the 10 undying giants. Of course, Lin Sun's greatest gain this time was undoubtedly the Blazing Sun Order. This was a complete god-level sequence, and its value was immeasurable. Apart from that, there were also the 9 rare heaven-rank sequences that formed the heaven-subduing formation, as well as the eternal Tao soldiers that Yang Batian and Yang Bai possessed. As for Yang Baishan's primordial spirit and corpse, he also collected them. When he mastered the mysteries of the 5 sequences of the ultimate, he would be able to refine different treasures. The only regret was that Yang Bai had been sent to the door of exile, and had been completely erased by the obliteration rules. I wonder if the outside world has already learned of what happened today. After sorting through the wealth, Lin Sun couldn't help but ponder. From the beginning of the battle to the end, there had been no bystanders near the Blazing Sun God Mountain. The outside world should not know that the eternal Yang clan had already suffered. As he pondered, Lin Sun's heart stirred, and greenwood Taoist forms swept out of the Blazing Sun God Mountain. As for Lin Sun himself, he began to meditate. Today's battle had allowed him to obtain many peerless treasures that could refine his cultivation, such as the 5 elements divine pill, the 9 transformations pill, and the chaotic jade pill, which had incredible effects on improving his cultivation in the transcendent realm. If he could improve his cultivation by another level before going to the eternal Ji clan, then even if he encountered the Dharma idol of the boundless realm, it would not be as difficult as it was to deal with Yang Batian today. Moreover, Lin Sun planned to take this time to comprehend the mysteries of the 5 sequences of the ultimate. As long as he mastered the power of the 5 origin rules, it would be of great use after killing the eternal realm opponents. 2 hours later. Greenwood Taoist form returned, and Lin Sun instantly sensed that during these 2 hours, Greenwood Taoist form had patrolled the boundless territory controlled by the Yang clan. Finally, he was sure that no one knew that the Yang clan had been destroyed. The world only knew that an earth-shattering battle had broken out near the vast Sun God Mountain today, but the vast Sun God Mountain and the vast Sun Order were still intact. This made the world subconsciously believe that the Yang clan had won this battle, and the one who had died was the enemy who had provoked the Yang clan. All this made Lin Sun feel much more at ease. He knew very well that if the news of the Yang clan's destruction was leaked, it would cause turmoil in the world. At that time, the other eternal gods would probably be the first to prepare and take precautions. In this case, it would also affect his next action in the Eternal God clan. But fortunately, the news had not been leaked yet. Let's start. Lin Sun took a deep breath and took out a jade box. There were 3 5-elements elixirs sealed in it. Each of them could be called a peerless treasure. They were originally used by those in the exceeding law realm to break through to the creation realm. But now, they were used by Lin Sun as a cultivation object. Whoosh! When Lin Sun swallowed a 5-elements elixir, the surging eternal power turned into a rolling heat current and spread in his body. The power was incredibly pure and surging. Even with Lin Sun's strong cultivation, he felt as if his body was about to explode at this moment. He took a deep breath and began to run his qi together with the 4 Taoist form, and began to refine the mighty torrent of elixirs in his body with all his strength. A full day later, the power of this 5-elements elixir had been completely refined by Lin Sun, and his cultivation had improved a lot. There was a faint sign that he had reached the middle stage of the exceeding law realm. It doesn't seem to be that magical. Lin Sun frowned slightly at such an improvement. He had thought that with the power of this elixir, he could break through to the middle stage of the exceeding law realm. If the dead Yang Qitian and Yang Bai knew this scene, they would definitely vomit blood. The 5-elements elixir was the most precious treasure for those in the exceeding law realm to break through to the creation realm. Its value was immeasurable. Even in the Yang clan, there were only 3 of them left, and they were treated as the most precious treasures of the clan. But now, Lin Sun was dissatisfied with this elixir. How could this be tolerated? However, Lin Sun also knew that his eternal Taoist foundation was too strong, and it was far from being comparable to those in the same realm. That was why his cultivation had only improved a little after refining a 5-elements elixir. This couldn't conceal the fact that the 5-elements elixir was a precious treasure. While thinking, Lin Sun swallowed another 5-elements elixir and began to refine it with all his heart and soul. This time, Lin Sun clearly felt that he had broken through to the middle stage of the exceeding law realm when he was only halfway through refining it. And when he completely refined the second 5-elements elixir, his cultivation in the middle stage of the exceeding law realm had been tempered to be incomparably solid. Lin Sun roughly judged that his combat power in the middle stage of the exceeding law realm was about 50% stronger than when he was in the early stage of the exceeding law realm. This was already an extremely amazing progress. It should be known that when he was in the early stage of the exceeding law realm, he was able to kill a group of exceeding law realm cultivators by himself. Even when facing Yang Qitian's Dharma image, he could still exhaust it to death. But now, his combat power had skyrocketed by 50%. It could be imagined that it was destined to be even easier and calmer to deal with those in the same realm. The Yang clan has such a treasure, but they didn't use it. It's a bit of a waste. As soon as Lin Sun thought of this, he immediately understood that it wasn't a waste of a treasure, but that Yang Qitian and Yang Bai, who were in the exceeding law realm, regarded the 5-elements elixir as a treasure for breaking through to the creation realm. How could they use it casually? After thinking about it, Lin Sun finally decided to refine the only remaining 5-elements elixir. He had just reached the eternal realm less than half a year ago, so he didn't expect to break through to the creation realm in a short time. Right now, as long as he could refine the mysteries of the exceeding law realm to the extreme and thoroughly understand its meaning, it would be enough. In fact, the cultivation of the eternal realm was extremely difficult, because the treasures needed for cultivation were so rare. Most of the eternal realm cultivators in the world had lived for tens of thousands of years, but their cultivation had always been within the range of the exceeding law realm. In the final analysis, it was because the cultivation resources suitable for the cultivation of the eternal realm were too scarce. But Lin Sun was different. Before he reached the eternal realm, he had obtained a large number of rare cultivation resources from the burial land of the Tao in the ultimate, such as the eternal Tao stone, the eternal blood stone, the eternal soul crystal, the eternal law, and so on. When he stepped into the eternal realm, he killed 9 eternal realm cultivators, including Jianan and Tanwu, which gave him a large number of spoils related to the cultivation of the eternal realm. And now, he had emptied out all of the eternal god Yang family's wealth. He alone had monopolized all the cultivation resources of the eternal god clan. This meant that he didn't have to worry about cultivation at all. Therefore, a treasure like the 5 elements elixir might be treasured by other cultivators in the exceeding law realm, and they wouldn't be willing to use it casually. But to Lin Sun, it was nothing. Discarding all distracting thoughts, Lin Sun continued to cultivate. The third 5 elements elixir was quickly refined, but Lin Sun didn't stop. He took out other treasures to cultivate, such as the 9 transformations powder, the jade pill of freedom, and so on. Half a month later, after refining 3 5 elements elixirs, 2 9 transformations powder, 2 9 transformations powder, 2 jade pill of freedom, and dozens of other miraculous medicines, Lin Sun's cultivation achieved a major breakthrough. He had entered the advanced stage of the exceeding law realm. Chapter 3108. Half a month. He broke through continuously from the early stage of transcendent realm to the late stage of transcendent realm. If this speed of advancement was spread out, those old guys in the eternal realm would be stunned. Among them, it took tens of thousands of years to refine themselves, and maybe they could improve their cultivation by 1 level. But Lin Sun broke through 2 small realms in a row in half a month. Even Lin Sun himself was in a trance. His cultivation progress was really too fast. Before coming to the 9th heaven, he never thought that he could break through 2 levels in the transcendent realm in half a month. However, thinking of the treasures he consumed in the past half a month, Lin Sun's excitement suddenly calmed down. The cultivation resources belonging to the eternal realm that the entire eternal god clan had accumulated for countless years were consumed by him in just half a month. This was also something that other existences in the transcendent realm could not enjoy at all. After all, even the eternal god clan had many eternal realm experts who would spend so many rare cultivation resources on one person. It could be said that this time, uprooting the Yang clan was no less than seizing a kind of heaven-defying fortune for Lin Sun. It was the resources accumulated by the Yang clan for countless years that paved a road for Lin Sun to advance by leaps and bounds. With my current cultivation, the combat power I possess has soared about twice as much as when I was in the early stage of transcendent realm. Lin Sun calmed down and felt the changes in his own strength. However, if I want to reach the consummation of transcendent realm, I can no longer rely on cultivation resources. Lin Sun realized that what he needed to do next was to precipitate and consolidate his cultivation, so that he could hone the most perfect cultivation. Exhaling a long breath, Lin Sun began to devote his mind to the 5 sequences of ultimate ruins. The 5 sequences of ultimate ruins represented the 5 original rules of ultimate ruins, namely transforming blood, transforming body, transforming Tao, transforming weapon, and transforming soul. Every single one of them could be said to be a taboo, and it targeted all experts in the world that possessed the Tao. It was capable of transforming the vital blood energy, cultivation energy, grand Tao energy, soul energy, and vital Tao weapons they possessed into the most primitive quintessence energy of the Grand Tao. Lin Sun had a deep understanding of this in the Tao burial land of ultimate ruins. It was even to the extent that, according to Ling Xuanzi, the reason the endless ruins couldn't be controlled by the mastermind behind the scenes was because of the Tao burial grounds. On the other hand, the quintessence core of the Tao burial grounds was on these 5 quintessence laws. Since ancient times until now, all the eternal stage figures that had fallen in the Kunlun ruins in the last era would leave behind corpses and powers that were suppressed in the burial Tao. Before the calamity of the next era arrived, the corpses and powers of these eternal stage figures would be transformed into the most primitive and pure vitality of the Grand Tao to nourish the heavens. From this, one could imagine how tyrannical the 5 sequences of the ultimate ruin were. Now, Lin Sun was qualified to comprehend the 5 sequences of the ultimate. Moreover, with the nirvana profundity, it was far easier for him to comprehend these 5 origin laws than others. Time flew by. 3 months passed quickly. The night was as dark as ink. In the vast Sun Mountain, Lin Sun woke up from meditation. The profundities of the 5 sequences of the ultimate had all been fused into his eternal laws. Although he hadn't comprehended these profundities to the extreme, it wasn't a problem for him to use them in battle. After mastering the 5 sequences of the ultimate, Lin Sun had a feeling that as long as he completely comprehended the power of these 5 origin laws to the extreme one day, he would even be able to control and use the true ultimate. He would become the ruler of the ultimate. Of course, this was only Lin Sun's current feeling. It's time to move. Lin Sun let out a long breath of turbid air and stood up. It had already been more than 3 months since he started cultivating in the vast Sun God Mountain. Now that his cultivation had undergone a tremendous change, he couldn't sit still any longer. He decided to head to the Eternal God Clan's Ji Clan today. The place where the Ji Clan resided was too far away from the vast Sun Mountain. If he relied on teleportation to travel, even an eternal stage figure would need to travel for about 3 days. However, Lin Sun had already learned that there was an ancient teleportation formation in the vast Sun God Mountain that could reach the territory of the Eternal God Clan in the shortest time possible. Before leaving, Lin Sun came to the gate of the vast Sun God Mountain. Look, the Eternal God Clan's Yang Clan is in trouble. Under the night sky, Lin Sun raised his hand and Qing Qianxue's figure appeared out of thin air. Hearing Lin Sun's words, Qing Qianxue was stunned. Trouble? This is the vast Sun God Mountain, but I will refine it and take it away later. Lin Sun explained seriously. In other words, in the future, there will be no vast Sun God Mountain and the Eternal God Clan's Yang Clan in the 9th heaven. Qing Qianxue's eyes widened. She was stunned and couldn't believe what she had heard. After a long time, she said in a trembling voice, Is this true? To her, today was simply like a dream. First, she met Lin Sun in the deepest part of the mine, and then she saw the powerhouses of the Eternal God Clan's Yang Clan guarding the star-forbidden mountain get annihilated. Until this night, when she looked at the vast Sun God Mountain in front of her and heard Lin Sun talk about the Eternal God Clan's Yang Clan's disaster, how could she accept it in a short time? She couldn't even believe it. Lin Sun didn't explain anything. Even if Qing Qianxue couldn't believe it for now, she would gradually believe the truth in the future. His figure rose into the air and grabbed at the air. Whoosh, the divine order power covering the entire vast Sun God Mountain was collected. Then, Lin Sun took a deep breath and activated his cultivation with all his might. Eternal laws rushed out of his body like divine chains, like a huge net that covered the sky and the sun, covering the entire vast Sun God Mountain. The bright rain of light also illuminated the night. It was sacred and glorious. Just a moment later, boom! The world shook, and the entire vast Sun God Mountain shook violently. Then, it was uprooted from the ground and slowly flew into the air. Qing Qianxue suddenly looked up. In her field of vision, she saw Lin Sun's tall figure like a supreme god, shining brightly. As he formed a seal with both hands, the huge vast sun god mountain that was as large as a continent began to shrink. In just a few breaths, it became the size of a fist and fell into Lin Sun's palm. This scene deeply shocked Qing Qianxue, and it became a scene that she would never forget for the rest of her life. At the same time, Lin Sun looked around and suddenly said, "From today onwards, the eternal god clan's Yang clan will no longer exist in this world." His voice was like a ripple that swept towards the surroundings, and it stretched towards the boundless horizon. All along the way, it alarmed countless living beings that resided in this boundless territory. When she saw this scene, Qing Qianxue finally believed that the eternal god clan's Yang clan had most likely met with disaster. She couldn't help but burst into tears. Thinking of her father who was killed and those clansmen who were captured and sent to the Forbidden Star Mountain to work as miners, her delicate body trembled with excitement. "Little girl, I'm leaving. Don't tell anyone that you and I know each other in the future. Otherwise, I'm afraid that it will bring you a fatal disaster. Remember this." In the void, Lin Sun put away the vast sun god mountain and said with a smile, "Senior, will I be able to see you in the future?" Qing Qianxue looked up and asked. "Let fate decide." Lin Sun smiled and walked in the air, disappearing into the boundless night. "Senior, you must take care." Qing Qianxue looked at the place where Lin Sun disappeared and murmured. Many years later, when Qing Qianxue, who had attained the eternal Tao, thought of what she saw today, and thought of the supreme magic that Lin Sun inadvertently displayed, there was an uncontrollable feeling of admiration in her heart. This night, the boundless territory controlled by the eternal god clan's Yang clan was in turmoil, and countless forces were alarmed. The eternal god clan's Yang clan had been erased from the world? For a time, countless forces took action and rushed towards the vast sun god mountain. Then, they saw an unbelievable scene. The vast land was empty, and there was no trace of the vast sun god mountain. How, after the battle during the day ended, the vast sun god mountain was still there, and the vast sun order was still there. How could it suddenly disappear? Countless people were dumbfounded and completely dumbfounded. Has the eternal god clan's Yang clan really been uprooted? Many people trembled and were shocked out of their wit. They couldn't believe this was true. After all, the eternal god clans might have been deeply engraved in the hearts of all living beings over the countless years. No one would believe that such a colossus would actually fall in a single night. This was too unbelievable. And when these news were reported back to the various forces in the boundless territory, it was like a storm had been set off. "Quick, send the news that the eternal god clan's Yang clan is in trouble." Some people were so excited that they were about to go crazy. Heavens, is the world going to change? That's the eternal god clan. They are said to be eternal and unshakable. How could they? Some people were in a daze, unable to imagine how such a thing could happen. Who on earth did it? Some people's hearts were palpitating. They couldn't guess who in the world could have destroyed the eternal god clan's Yang clan in a single night. Ha 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 ha, the Yang clan's retribution has finally come. Everyone, it's time for revenge. Some people were overjoyed. On this night, the boundless territory controlled by the eternal god clan's Yang clan was completely in turmoil and uproar. Who knew how many undercurrents were surging under the night sky? It could be foreseen that as the news of the eternal god clan's Yang clan's destruction spread, countless storms would be stirred up, and the lives of the Yang clan scattered in different places were destined to be difficult. Of course, this kind of turmoil was just the beginning. The destruction of an eternal god clan's Yang clan would definitely not just affect one area, but the entire ninth heaven, and even the entire eternal world. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call this a change in the world. And on the night when the news began to spread, Lin Sun had already left through the ancient teleportation array and embarked on his journey to the eternal god clan's Ji clan. Children, if you have a monthly ticket, don't forget to vote for it. I will continue to add updates tonight. Chapter 3109. The Surging Dawn Domain. A vast territory controlled by the eternal divine clans G-Clan. The divine mountain of beginning, where the G-Clan resided, was located in the Surging Dawn Domain. Flying Cloud City. One of the thousands of large ancient cities in the Surging Dawn Domain. The teleportation formation at the center of the city rippled, and Lin Sun's tall figure walked out. He raised his eyes to look around, and he saw the intersecting streets and alleys in the city were bustling like water. Figures bustled about everywhere, and it seemed to be extremely bustling. Lin Sun's aura was restrained, so he didn't attract much attention. With my speed, I'll be able to arrive at the divine mountain of beginnings where the G-Clan resides in less than half a day from Soaring Cloud City. Lin Sun strolled leisurely down the street, his mind whirling with information regarding the eternal God G family. As one of the 12 eternal divine clans, the G-Clan had 3 law-transcending eternal realm cultivators. They were Ji Xiaoyun, Ji He, and Ji Beifeng. They lived in seclusion at the divine mountain of beginning and rarely showed themselves. The G-Clan's patriarch was Ji Wangtu. He had a calm temperament and was a great strategist. He was also Ji Shi and Ji Shanhai's father. Apart from that, the G-Clan also had many immortal figures. In terms of foundation and power, they could be ranked in the top 5 of the 12 eternal divine clans. The Yang clan's foundation was slightly inferior to the G clan's. However, in Lin Sun's eyes, the Yang clan, the G clan, and the other eternal divine clans weren't much of a threat. I wonder how she is now. Lin Sun couldn't help but think of Xi's peerless and graceful figure. He remembered how he'd met Xi when he was young and how they'd parted in the Kunlun ruins. In those years, she'd been like his guide, giving him pointers and shielding him from the wind and rain. Just thinking about it made Lin Sun feel incomparably comfortable and warm. At that time, he'd wandered the world alone and experienced bloodshed. Fortunately, she had accompanied him all the way, so he'd never felt lonely. Later, in the Kunlun ruins, she, who'd set foot on the path of immortality, had been taken away by the clan's general, Jun Fenglai. Lin Sun hadn't seen Xi since then. From then on, Lin Sun would often think of Xi. It was only when he met Ji Shanhai in the 10 Devilish territory that he finally learned of Xi's origins. He finally knew that such a peerless woman, who was once famous in the 9th heaven, had such a tortuous and bumpy life. A very long time ago, Xi's talent, foundation, elegance, and appearance were all the best among her peers in the G-Clan. She was regarded as the most qualified woman to inherit the position of clan leader. Her name resounded throughout the 9th heaven, but perhaps it was because she was too dazzling that she had to suffer a lot. The root of the problem was the marriage proposals from the other eternal god clans. At that time, countless divine princes hoped to marry Xi into their clan. In order to fight for Xi's hand, the great figures of the eternal god clans did not hesitate to show up in person and fight fiercely with each other. This incident also caused a sensation in the 9th heaven, and everyone in the world knew about it. But no one knew that it was also because of this that a serious disagreement arose within the G clan. Some people hoped that Xi would marry someone from the eternal god clan and further consolidate the status of the G clan. Some people were unwilling to do so and accused the elders who wanted her to marry someone from the eternal god clan. They wanted to kick her out of the clan so that others could have the opportunity to seize the position of the clan leader. There were even conflicts between the clansmen who wanted her to marry someone else. Some hoped that she would marry into the eternal Yi clan, some hoped that she would marry into the Ju clan, and some hoped that she would marry into the Taihao clan. Because of this, they argued fiercely with each other. The saddest thing was that no one had ever asked Xi what she thought from the beginning. Everyone had been thinking for her own good, and planning for her, forcing their own thoughts and wills on her. If these things didn't happen, she would still be the most dazzling star of the G clan, the pride of the entire clan. But after these things happened, she became nothing more than a chess piece in the eyes of others. For the so-called overall situation of the clan and the interests of the clan, she could only be manipulated. Later, she left the clan alone. But because of her departure, the entire clan was enraged. From then on, her name became a taboo in the Ji clan. These things were told to Lin Sun by Ji Shanhai. Lin Sun felt incomparable anger when he thought about it. How dazzling was she at that time! But it was such a peerless woman who became a chess piece in a storm. Her life was out of her control and she was at the mercy of others. How disappointed must she have been to leave the clan so resolutely. Sadly, her departure was met with the angry accusations of her clansmen, as well as their disappointment in her. How ridiculous was this! Countless years had passed, but her name was still a taboo in the Ji clan. Very few people talked about it, and many old antiques even took it to heart. This time, I must avenge you. Lin Sun took a deep breath and suppressed the tumbling emotions in his heart. Back then, he had promised Ji Shanhai that he would set foot in the 9th heaven one day and rescue she from her confinement. And now, it was time for him to fulfill his promise. Suddenly, a burst of discussion caught Lin Sun's attention and woke him up from his contemplation. Tomorrow, the Taihao clan's wedding team will arrive at the sacred mountain of origin. It is said that the leader this time is an eternal realm ancestor of the Taihao clan. I also heard that a few days ago, the Ji clan sent out invitations and arranged for this marriage. It can be foreseen that the relationship between the Ji clan and the Taihao clan will be further improved from now on. Speaking of which, Goddess Ji, she was famous in the 9th heaven. She was known as the first goddess among the 12 eternal god clans. Her appearance and talent are unparalleled. Now, she is already a peerless existence on the immortal way. Taihao Ji is not inferior. He is the first god of the Taihao clan. His talent is heaven-defying. Now, he is already a transcendent realm great perfection on the immortal way. Sooner or later, he will take over the authority of the Taihao clan. After listening, a cold light appeared in the depths of Lin Sun's eyes. Marriage? He suddenly recalled that Ji Shanhai had said all those years ago that unless she agreed to form a marriage alliance with the Taihao clan's Taihao Ji, he would be grounded for eternity. But now this marriage seemed to have taken place. Tomorrow, the wedding team of the Taihao clan would arrive at the sacred mountain of origin. If she is willing to marry I can't do it. But if not, don't blame me for being impolite. Lin Sun's black eyes became colder. The abyssal sword cauldron in his body also sensed his killing intent and jumped with it. As for the truth, he would know it by going to see she in person. Thinking of this, Lin Sun no longer hesitated. He took a step forward and disappeared from the city. He moved through the void and flew towards the sacred mountain of origin. Along the way, Lin Sun saw many figures of practitioners. They were in groups and obviously came from different forces, but their goal was the same, which was to fly towards the sacred mountain of origin. Listening to their conversation, they were all going to visit and congratulate the Eternal God clan. The marriage between the Ji clan and the Taihao clan is really a great force. If it was an ordinary person, he wouldn't be able to stop it. Unfortunately, I'm here this time, Lin Sun murmured in his heart. He moved with all his strength. Like a flash of light, he disappeared without a trace. The journey that should have taken half a day took only 4 hours. Soon, the sacred mountain of origin came into Lin Sun's sight. The mountain covered an area of 30,000 square miles. The sky was enshrouded in chaotic purple qi, and the whole mountain was bathed in the auspicious light. When Lin Sun arrived, many figures had already gathered in the area near the mountain gate, and the gate was as crowded as a marketplace. Men, women, young and old, all of them were dignified and dressed in gorgeous clothes. Obviously, they had powerful backgrounds, but when they entered the mountain gate, they all respectfully presented their invitations. No one dared to act recklessly. Tomorrow was the day of the Ji clan's celebration. There was an endless stream of guests coming to congratulate them. There were always strong figures coming from all directions. From this, it could be seen how powerful the G clan was as an eternal god clan. However, only strong people with invitations could bring their relatives and friends into the sacred mountain of origin. Otherwise, they would be blocked by the divine level order that covered the sacred mountain of origin. Lin Sun frowned slightly. Forget it. I'd better inquire about Xi's whereabouts first, and then make a decision. Lin Sun secretly took a deep breath and restrained his intention to directly kill his way in. Taoism Pier, please wait. Seeing a figure in the distance, Lin Sun's expression didn't change. He went straight forward. It was an old man with flowing beard and hair. He had the cultivation of the Nirvana realm. In the ninth heaven, he could be regarded as a top figure. Seeing Lin Sun blocking his way, the old man couldn't help but frown. Young man, why are you blocking my way? Lin Sun slightly cupped his hands. I want to ask you to take me into the G clan. The old man's eyes revealed a look of disdain. So you don't have an invitation, yet you still want to sneak into the G clan's wedding banquet. Young man, this invitation isn't something that just anyone can get. This old man has spent nearly 9,000 years before he finally managed to forge a relationship with the G clan. Only now can I openly enter their door. Who do you think you are to sneak in? His words were arrogant and disdainful. He was not polite at all. After that, the old man was about to move forward. Lin Sun pressed his shoulder and said with a smile, "Since I still need to borrow your invitation, I won't care about the disrespect in your words. Now you lead the way. Let's go." At this moment, the old man with the cultivation of the Nirvana realm was covered in cold sweat. His face was ashen, and he no longer had the arrogance and disdain before. Lin Sun's hand on his shoulder seemed to be casual, but it imprisoned his cultivation. It was like a sword to his throat. It seemed that if he resisted, he would be killed on the spot in an instant. He couldn't care less about wiping the cold sweat that was dripping down his forehead. His voice was trembling as he said, "I'm sorry." He said in a trembling voice, "Say, Senior, this is the territory of the G clan. If you make trouble here, I'm afraid the consequences will be very serious." More updates. Chapter 31:10. The G clan is an eternal god clan that has existed in the ninth heaven since ancient times. No one is stupid enough to cause trouble in front of the G clan, because it is no different from courting death. The old man thought so. That's why he carefully reminded Lin Sun. However, Lin Sun smiled and said, "If anything happens, I will take responsibility, but if you make any trouble, I will say that we are in cahoots." The old man's face turned green. What kind of world is this? How can people slander people like this? Don't worry, as long as we enter the mountain gate, I will let you go, and I promise that no matter what happens, you will not be implicated. Lin Sun said casually, however, if you choose to leak the news to the G clan, absolutely not. Before he finished speaking, the old man patted his chest and promised. What a joke, he was the one who brought Lin Sun in. If someone saw through him, he would not be able to get away with it. This is called yellow mud falling on the crotch. Even if it's not shit, it's still shit. Let's go. Lin Sun put down his hand and walked side by side with the old man towards the gate of the divine mountain of origin. Along the way, the old man looked extremely honest. He was a Nirvana god, but he was subdued before he could react. This made him very clear that once he made the slightest move, he was destined to be the first to suffer. Soon, the two arrived in front of the mountain gate, and as the old man showed them the invitation, they walked in smoothly. Behind the mountain gate, there was a world that could be called the world's top secret realm. It was extremely vast, and there were mountains filled with chaotic energy everywhere. Senior, do you need to lead the way? A young servant walked forward and asked in a humble manner. The old man shook his head and refused, then walked away with Lin Sun until there was no one around. The old man couldn't help but ask, Taoism peer, may I ask why you are here? Lin Sun patted him on the shoulder and said, It's better not to know. The old man's expression changed slightly as if he had realized something. After a long silence, he said, Fellow Taoist, although we met by chance, I still have to remind you that this is the divine mountain of beginnings, the territory of the eternal God clan's Ji clan. Even if an eternal realm expert comes here, he has to keep his head down. You must not do anything inappropriate. Lin Sun said with a faint smile, You are worried that I will implicate you. After all, many people saw you come in with me. An awkward expression flashed across the old man's face before he solemnly said, I'm only thinking for your sake. Whether you listen or not is up to you. Lin Sun said with a smile, You are a smart man and I'm sure you won't do anything stupid. Well, let's say goodbye. As he spoke, he strode forward. That's true. This is the headquarters of the Eternal God's Ji clan. Who would dare cause trouble here? The old man muttered in his heart as if he was consoling himself. But when he thought of Lin Sun's calm look, he couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. He had a feeling that something was going to happen today. The Ji clan was exceedingly bustling with noise and excitement. The guests that had come to congratulate were like tidewater that arrived wave after wave, and they presented a variety of congratulatory gifts that were meticulously prepared. All along the way, Lin Sun walked forward with his hands behind his back, and he didn't draw much attention because there were truly too many guests that had come to visit the Ji clan today. There was utterly no need for Lin Sun to inquire about it. From the conversations between the guests and the clansmen of the Ji clan, Lin Sun found out that Ji Shi, the bride that was going to marry into the Taihao clan tomorrow, was currently residing on Bamboo Peak. Bamboo Peak was very easy to find. However, it had already been transformed into a restricted area, and outsiders were prohibited from approaching it. This naturally wasn't a problem for Lin Sun. As he moved forward, the guards that guarded the vicinity of Bamboo Peak didn't notice his aura at all. Is this Bamboo Peak? Lin Sun arrived before a quiet and secluded peak that was enshrouded in spiritual energy. When he raised his eyes, he saw numerous red lanterns that glowed brilliantly from the top of the peak all the way to the bottom of the mountain, and it was fiery red and festive. Lin Sun walked up the stairs and saw many servants and manservants all along the way, but none of them noticed Lin Sun's tracks. In next to no time, he arrived halfway up the mountain. There was an antique pavilion here, and there weren't any guards in the surroundings. It made sense. This was the core area of the Ji clan, and it was covered by the divine level order, so there was utterly no need for anyone to guard it. Lin Sun took a deep breath before he walked towards the pavilion. At this moment, within the pavilion, a red carpet covered the ground, an incense burner curled up, and a variety of festive decorations filled the air. A graceful figure sat upright before a bronze mirror, and the reflection of the bronze mirror revealed an extremely beautiful and elegant face. Her beautiful eyes were like stars, the bridge of her nose was high, and her rosy lips were slightly puckered. Her fine black hair flowed down like a waterfall to her slender waist. She just sat there silently like that, yet she revealed a type of beauty that was capable of stunning all living beings. However, a wisp of coldness that couldn't be eliminated lingered between her brows. Elder sister, have you really made up your mind? Ji Shanhai, who sat on a round stool at the side, couldn't help but ask. She wore a plain wide-sleeved dress that was clear like jade and tranquil like an orchid. In terms of elegance, she had her own merits when compared to her elder sister. Yes. She gazed at herself in the bronze mirror with a calm expression, and her eyes that were cold like ice seemed to be without the slightest fluctuation of emotion. Ji Shanhai gritted her teeth and stood up before she said, Elder sister, why don't I ask the old ancestor Ji, he to let me marry the Taihao clan on your behalf? She was stunned, and then she said, They came for me. Don't do anything stupid. Not to mention, only if I agree to this marriage will I be able to protect father's position as patriarch. Ji Shanhai's beautiful face flickered indeterminately, and her heart was filled with sorrow and desolation. She said, "Since when does the position of patriarch have to be traded for your marriage? Those old fellows are simply going too far." She said in a light voice, "In their eyes, the interests of the clan surpass everything else. Now, they're only sacrificing me to form a marriage relationship with the Taihao clan, so they're naturally willing to do it. Of course, in their eyes, I should be grateful to them. After all, it's a great honor to marry me to the young patriarch of the Taihao clan." Her voice carried a cold and mocking tone. Why has it become like this?" Ji Shanhai muttered. She was unable to see her older sister get married just like this because it was simply no different than ruining her older sister's entire life. This matter should have occurred a very long time ago. However, it was delayed until now because I arbitrarily left the clan all those years ago. She's expression was too calm, and it seemed as if she was speaking about something that wasn't related to her at all. Moreover, because father sent me off in secret all those years ago, I've always suffered the criticism and prejudice of those seniors in the clan throughout the countless years of the past. If I refuse again this time, then it wouldn't be as simple as being confined for my entire lifetime, and it would even cause father to lose his position as patriarch. Once father loses power, then our situation in the clan is bound to become even more unbearable. As a daughter, if I'm able to help, then how could I possibly allow all of this to happen?" As she finished speaking, she sighed with disappointment and frustration. "Sometimes, when I think about it, being born in the Eternal God clan is boundless in the eyes of outsiders, yet to us it's extremely unfortunate. No matter how extraordinary our natural talent is, and even if we've stepped foot onto the Eternal Tao, we're bound to be pawns that are at the mercy of others when it comes to the interests of the clan." Sister, Ji Shanhai's heart ached, and an indescribable sorrow surged through her entire body. She got up and gently hugged her sister, Ji Shanhai. She patted her back and said gently, "All right, don't think too much about it. Everything has already happened. After I get married tomorrow, your and father's positions in the clan will be stabilized. You must cultivate well. There's still a long way to go." At that moment there was suddenly a soft knock on the door. She and Ji Shanhai were stunned. They looked at each other and wondered who would come to pay a visit at this time. She sat straight in front of the bronze mirror, while Ji Shanhai walked towards the door. "Didn't I say that you can't come if there's nothing?" Ji Shanhai said as she opened the door. When she saw the figure outside, she was immediately stunned. Her beautiful eyes, which were like limpid autumn waters, widened and were filled with astonishment and disbelief. This abnormal scene caused she, who was not far away, to turn his head to look. At that moment a familiar voice rang out. "Miss Shanhai, how long has it been since we last met? Don't you remember me?" Closely following that, Lin Sun's tall figure walked in. Ji Shanhai said in a daze, Why are you here? That's not right. How did you come in? This is Wenju Peak, the core of my clan." She could not even speak fluently. Lin Sun's sudden appearance was too unexpected for her. She did not dare to believe it. At the same time, she also stood up quietly. A dazed look appeared in his cold eyes. "So it's this brat." After so many years, Lin Sun still looked the same as before. However, his temperament was completely different. He was calm and indifferent like a lonely mountain. Every move he made exuded a formless might. This was a temperament that could only be obtained after being tempered by the vicissitudes of life. One could imagine that he must have experienced many things over the years. At the same time, Lin Sun was also stunned. She was dressed in a fiery red phoenix coronet and robe. Her skin was as fair as snow, which made her look even more dignified and beautiful. Lin Sun had never seen her in such an attire before, which was why she seemed particularly soul-stirring at this moment. However, Lin Sun felt a dull pain in his heart. What she was wearing was a wedding dress. "Senior, long time no see. Lin Sun took a deep breath and suppressed his emotions. Then, he cupped his hands and greeted Shi. Just like when he was young. The dazed look in Shi's eyes disappeared. She became calm and said, "Shanhai, close the door." Ji Shanhai seemed to have woken up from a dream. He quickly went forward and closed the door. Then, he walked forward and looked Lin Sun up and down. "Brother Lin, it's really you." It was only at this moment that she dared to believe everything. Then, her eyes lit up and she said with a slightly excited tone, "Are you here to save my sister?" Lin Sun nodded seriously, "That's right." However, there was no trace of joy on Shi's beautiful face. She stared at Lin Sun and pondered for a moment before saying softly, "Today is different from the past. The matters of the Ji clan are not what you understand. You'd better not get involved. Otherwise, even I can't protect you." Serial number www.zuliheo.org. Computer access address. Mobile phone access address. Chapter 3111. Otherwise, even I can't protect you. Hearing this, Lin Sun felt an indescribable warmth in his heart. She was already in an unbearable predicament, yet she was still reminding and worrying about his safety. However, he was no longer the boy who needed her protection. Now, it was time for him to do something for her. "Lin Sun, sit first." "Shanhai, pour tea," she said softly. Ji Shanhai started to get busy. After Lin Sun sat down, he calmed down and said, "Senior, I've heard the conversation between you and Miss Shanhai outside the pavilion. Allow me to say something shameless. This time, I'm here to avenge you. If you don't want to stay in Ji's family any longer, I can take you away immediately." His voice was calm and firm. Ji Shanhai, who was pouring tea, trembled and said happily, "Brother Lin, are you serious?" Lin Sun said, "I don't think I'm joking." She also saw that Lin Sun was serious, and her heart was touched. Her clansmen kept saying that they were thinking for her, but they had never really cared about her feelings. But Lin Sun was different. This young man who she watched rise to the top obviously took a great risk to come to the ninth heaven to help her vent her anger, and even to take her away. How could she not be touched by this kind of intention? However, when she thought of the situation of the clan, she felt a chill in her heart and said, "Over the years, I have also heard some things about you. I know that you are now a pavilion master in the ancestral court of Yuan School, and your name is well known in the 9 heavens. As long as you continue to walk step by step, there will be a day when you will dominate the world. Under such circumstances, don't get involved in the muddy water of my Ji clan." Lin Sun was touched and amused by her words. Obviously, she didn't believe that he had the ability to take her away. Ji Shanhai couldn't help but say, "Sister, let me ask Brother Lin something first." With that, she looked at Lin Sun with her beautiful eyes and said, "Brother Lin, you must have confidence in coming this time, right?" Lin Sun nodded, "Of course." "Then what's your cultivation level now?" Ji Shanhai asked. Lin Sun didn't hide it, the late stage of transgression. Ji Shanhai almost spilled the tea in his hand as he exclaimed, "Late transcendent realm?" It had only been less than 100 years since they parted ways in the 10 devil realms. Lin Sun had already reached the eternal realm? Furthermore, he was in the late stage transcendent state. This made Ji Shanhai unable to remain calm. She, who was at the side, was also stunned. Her clear eyes stared at Lin Sun as if she was getting to know him all over again. After a long time, she took a deep breath and said, "Even if you have set foot on the eternal path, you can't. This is the 9th heaven, the world of the eternal God clan. Let alone you, even if you have a few more eternal realm helpers, you won't be able to interfere in the affairs between the Ji clan and the Taihao clan." In the end, Lin Sun couldn't help but say, "Senior, I don't even care about the other eternal gods, much less the Ji clan." If it were others, they would have thought Lin Sun was arrogant. Of course, although she and Ji Shanhai knew very well that Lin Sun was not a boastful person, they still found it funny when they heard his words. This guy actually didn't care about the Eternal God clan after stepping into the Eternal Realm? It seemed that he still didn't know how strong the Eternal God clan was. At this moment, a voice came from outside the room. Who dares to clamor here? Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? The door was pushed open, and a group of people walked in. They were led by a middle-aged man in a black robe with a white jade belt around his waist. He was tall and dignified, walking like a dragon or a tiger. Behind him was a group of men and women. The person who spoke was a pretty woman amongst them. She had a hot figure and curvaceous figure, yet her expression was cold and arrogant to the extreme. She and Ji Shanhai stood up and greeted, "Second uncle." At the same time, Ji Shanhai's voice sounded in Lin Sun's ears. "This is my uncle Ji Moliai, and those are my uncle's children." Lin Sun's expression didn't change. He didn't care about these relationships. In the entire Ji clan, he only cared about Shi and Ji Shanhai. He didn't care about the names, identities, and status of others, but obviously, Lin Sun had become the focus of everyone's attention. As soon as Ji Moliai and the others came in, they noticed this stranger. The beautiful woman who spoke before stared at Lin Sun with sharp eyes. "Who are you? How did you sneak in? Don't you know this is our clan's forbidden area?" "Ji Qiao, how can you say that? He's my friend. He's also here to attend my sister's wedding," Ji Shanhai said unhappily. The beautiful woman called Ji Qiao snorted coldly. "Cousin Shanhai, this is Sister Shi's boudoir. How can you let a man in before she gets married? If news of this were to spread and the Taihao clan finds out about it, then can you bear the consequences?" Ji Shanhai was annoyed. Just as he was about to say something, she stopped him. "All right, we're all family. Don't quarrel." Then, she looked at Ji Moliai and said, "Second uncle, why are you here?" Ji Moliai had been looking Lin Sun up and down. When he heard this, he said indifferently, "Shanhai, ask your friend to leave first." Ji Shanhai couldn't help but look at Shi. She nodded. Lin Sun suddenly said, "Miss Shanhai, have you and your sister been wronged by these people all these years?" His words caused everyone present to look askance at him. "What do you mean?" Ji Qiao's eyes turned cold and aggressive. "Cousin Shanhai, this friend of yours didn't take the eternal gods seriously before, and now he's trying to cause trouble here. Isn't he being a little too arrogant?" The other men and women also looked at her coldly. This was the Ji clan. This was their territory. A stranger of unknown origin dared to make trouble here. He was courting death. Even Ji Moliai couldn't help but frown. "Tomorrow is Shi-Er's wedding day. I don't want to cause trouble. Shanhai, if you don't want your friend to suffer, you'd better disappear with him now. Remember, I don't want to see him again." His eyes were cold and indifferent, as well as a kind of disdain from the bottom of his heart. If it weren't for Shi and Ji Shanhai, he wouldn't have bothered to say a word to this young man who had come out of nowhere. He would have ordered his retainers to kill him directly. Ji Shanhai hurriedly said to Lin Sun, "Let's leave first." Lin Sun shook his head. "You can leave if you want. I'll help you vent your anger first, and then I'll take you away with me." "What?" Lin Sun's words caused an uproar. Ji Qiao even laughed mockingly. "He really is a reckless fool. Cousin Shanha, where did you get this friend? He's simply—" She wanted to say more. Slap. An invisible slap landed on her pretty face. She knelt on the ground with a thud, blood spurting from her nose and mouth. Her hair was disheveled, and she was in a sorry state. "You'll suffer if you speak too viciously. This is what they call a loose tongue," Lin Sun said softly. He actually dared to hurt someone? Those men and women were all stunned. No matter how they racked their brains, they didn't dare believe that someone had actually fiercely slapped their clansman in the Ji clan's territory in front of all of them. This was completely beyond their expectations. They had seen people courting death, but they had never seen someone courting death like this. Ji Moliai couldn't help but get angry. His face darkened. Ji Shanhai cursed inwardly. Even she didn't expect that Lin Sun would make a move without any warning. She was just about to dissuade him when Ji Moliai said coldly, "Don't stop him. If this man doesn't die today, how will the Ji clan have any face left?" As he spoke, he suddenly stepped forward and pressed his palm towards Lin Sun's head. Boom! The power that belonged to the great perfection realm spread with this palm. It was extremely powerful. However, Lin Sun stood still. His palm stopped 1 foot in front of him. No matter how hard Ji Moliai tried, he couldn't move an inch further. His face changed instantly. Bang! The next moment, a terrifying pressure surged. Ji Moliai's vision darkened, and he knelt on the ground. His body was imprisoned, and he couldn't even lift his head. From beginning to end, Lin Sun didn't make a move at all. Seeing this scene, the other men and women were dumbfounded. They were so shocked that their scalps were numb. They couldn't believe it. A guy who came out of nowhere not only dared to beat people in their territory, but also forced their father to kneel. This was a great humiliation. A young man in a splendid robe, pointed at Lin Sun fiercely, but he was so frightened that he couldn't speak. Coward. Lin Sun's lips spat out 2 words, full of disdain. Along with the voice, these men and women also knelt on the ground in a dense row. This scene caused Shi and Ji Shanhai to be extremely stunned. Even they didn't expect that Lin Sun would make a move so quickly and neatly. It simply caught them off guard. When they wanted to stop it, it was already too late. Someone come quickly. Someone is committing murder in our Ji clan. Ji Qiao, who knelt on the ground, screamed. Lin Sun laughed. This attic has already been covered by my power. It's useless even if you shout yourself hoarse. His words made Ji Qiao's voice stop abruptly. She said angrily, "Who the hell are you? What are you doing in my Ji clan? Cousin Shanhai, he is your friend. Are you colluding with outsiders to harm us? Do you know that this is a crime of betraying the clan?" The woman was too noisy. With a flick of Lin's finger, she rolled her eyes and fainted straight away. Suddenly, the room became much quieter. "Lin Sun, you've caused a big disaster this time." She sighed softly, and a hint of worry appeared on her face. She was also confused at this moment, not knowing what to do. Things had already happened, and she couldn't change it even if she wanted to. Even if she could protect Lin Sun now, in the 9th heaven, with the power of the Ji clan, how could she let Lin Sun leave alive? Lin Sun said disapprovingly, "Senior, don't worry. You just need to tell me who has bullied you all these years. I'll take care of the rest." After a pause, a cold light flashed in his black eyes, and he said, "Of course, it doesn't matter if it's hard for you to tell me. I'll search the souls of these guys one by one. I'll always know who has wronged you all these years." These words made she startled for a while. After not seeing him for so many years, this kid has become more and more overbearing. "Children, do you have monthly tickets? Goldfish wants to add more chapters tonight." Chapter 31:12. Ji Shanhai could not help but take another look at Lin Sun. She thought to herself, "My sister was right about him. Who else in the world could be like him, risking everything to save my sister?" She was a descendant of the eternal gods, so she naturally knew how powerful the eternal gods were. To the billions of people in the eternal world, they were a colossus that they could only look up to. Even an eternal realm cultivator would have to lower his head. But Lin Sun was different. He did not care about these things at all, as if he had already cast life and death aside. She thought for a moment and said, "Lin Sun, this is no longer just a matter of the Ji clan. It also involves the Tai Hao clan. Their wedding procession will arrive tomorrow. At this critical juncture, the entire Ji clan will not tolerate any accident." She looked at Lin Sun and was about to continue speaking when Lin Sun smiled bitterly and said, "Senior, if you continue to dissuade me from getting involved, then I'll do as I please. As the saying goes, concern leads to chaos." She was clearly worried that he would be implicated and be killed. But why would he care about this? As he spoke, a cold light flashed in Lin Sun's eyes. He was about to search Ji Moliai's soul. The latter had not said a word since he was forced to kneel on the ground, but he seemed to have sensed that something was wrong. He suddenly said, "Lin Sun, I know who you are." He raised his head with difficulty, and his expression was livid and murderous. "But I have to tell you that even if you are the pavilion master of the Yuan sect, you will not escape death in the Ji clan's territory." A hint of disdain appeared in Lin Sun's eyes. This old bastard clearly did not know his situation. He was about to make a move, but he stopped himself, because someone else had come. "Father is here to see you." A hoarse voice filled with exhaustion came from outside the room. "Father." Ji Shanhai and Ji Shi looked at each other, and could not help but feel at a loss. If their father saw the scene in the room at this time, but before they could react, the door was pushed open and a group of people walked in. The leader was a tall and thin middle-aged man. There was a hint of exhaustion between his brows that could not be concealed. This person was the patriarch of the Ji clan, Ji Wangtu. When he saw the scene in the room clearly, Ji Wangtu's pupils constricted abruptly, and the exhaustion between his brows was completely wiped away and replaced by a wisp of a cold and fierce expression. He glanced at Ji Moliai and the others on the ground, then at Shi and Ji Shanhai. Finally, his gaze landed on Lin Sun. "What's going on?" At this moment, Ji Wangtu displayed the calmness that a clan leader should have, not panicking in the face of shock. However, the group of people who came with him could not remain calm. Their expressions changed drastically as they shouted, "Ji Shi, are you going back on your word? You've already made a move against Second Elder and the others. Are you two sisters planning to betray the clan?" These people were the upper echelons of the Ji clan, and their seniority was on par with the clan head, Ji Wangtu. They were Shi and Ji Shanhai's uncles. At this moment, they were both enraged and their faces were dark. There were even people who directly went forward to help Ji Moliai and the others up. However, the awkward thing was that no matter how much force that person used, Ji Moliai and the others' figures did not move at all, maintaining their kneeling posture. This scene caused everyone to be even more shocked and furious. "What's going on?" Ji Wangtu asked in a deep voice. Bang! The door was suddenly closed. Then, Lin Sun said indifferently, "I'm Lin Sun. I've come to take Shi and Miss Shanhai away. These kneeling people spoke rudely to me and even tried to obstruct me. I can only punish them." His words were calm and casual, but everyone was shocked. Lin Sun. This name had long spread throughout the heavens. How could the Ji clan not know? However, no one expected Lin Sun to appear in the core of the Ji clan. This was too surprising. For a moment, everyone was shocked and bewildered. "This is the Ji clan's forbidden area. How did you enter?" someone said angrily. Lin Sun could not help but laugh. "This place is not a dragon's pool or a tiger's den. Of course I walked in." "Lin Sun, I think you're tired of living," someone said with a gloomy expression. However, halfway through his words, he was suppressed to the ground. His body twitched, and no matter how he struggled, he could not even make a sound. This scene shocked Ji Wangtu and the others to the point their expressions changed greatly. Because Lin Sun hadn't even made a move before he'd been directly suppressed. If you have something to say, then say it properly. Otherwise, kneel on the ground and listen obediently. Lin Sun said indifferently. Everyone was extremely shocked and furious. It was the first time they had experienced such humiliation when they were threatened in their own territory. She could not help but sigh when she saw this scene. However, a hint of determination appeared in her clear eyes. She glanced at everyone and said, "Father, uncles, Lin Sun came to save me. Father, uncles, Lin Sun came to save me. I hope you don't care about what happened today. Otherwise, I don't mind refusing this marriage in front of everyone when the wedding procession of Tai Hao clan arrives tomorrow. At that time, the entire Ji clan will be disgraced." Her voice was cold and powerful. Ji Wangtu's gaze was complicated. His expression was filled with indescribable guilt and sadness. He knew that the reason his daughter had agreed to the marriage was to protect his position as the clan leader. How could he blame her for acting recklessly at this moment? However, the people around Ji Wangtu could not remain calm. All of them were shocked and furious. "Shi-er, do you know how serious the consequences will be if you do this?" Someone said with a gloomy expression. "Shi-er, don't do anything foolish. You have to think twice whether it's for yourself or for your father," someone said anxiously. These uncles of Shi spoke one after another. Some were threatening, some were cold, and some were anxious and worried. Everyone's expression and attitude were different. Lin Sun had a panoramic view of all of this, and he'd roughly determined exactly who was good for Shi and who was playing the role of the villain. Finally, Ji Wangtu said, "Shi-er, do you know why I've come to find you?" She was stunned and said in a low voice, "Father, please explain." Ji Wangtu took a deep breath and said, "I don't want the position of clan leader anymore." His words were earth-shattering. Everyone was stunned and revealed looks of disbelief. Even Shi and Ji Shanhai were stunned. "Father, you mustn't." She was agitated at this moment. Ji Wangtu waved his hand and said, "You don't have to persuade me. As a father, I can only let my daughter suffer so much in order to keep the position of clan leader. What use do I have for it?" "Father." Shi and Ji Shanhai's eyes turned red, and there were tears in their eyes. Ji Wangtu revealed an open-minded smile and said, "I've thought it through. Even if I'm seen as a sinner of the clan, even if I've completely offended the Taihao clan, I have to bear the responsibility as a father first. If I can't even protect my own daughter, I'll feel guilty for the rest of my life." As he spoke, he seemed to relax as if he had removed the shackles on his body. His expression was resolute. "As for the position of clan leader, whoever wants it can have it. Even if I lose this great authority, I'll do my best to protect you and your sister. I won't let you suffer any more." Although Shi's expression was calm, tears had already flowed out of her eyes. She had already given up and accepted her fate. Never had she imagined that Lin Sun would pay a visit on the day before she got married, and Lin Sun disregarded everything and intended to take her away from this abyss of suffering. Never had she imagined that even her father would rather give up the position of clan leader for the sake of not allowing her to suffer any more grievances. All of this caused her emotions to surge. It was like she was in an abyss of despair and had suddenly seen the bright and beautiful sunlight. Her heart surged with excitement, and she was unable to restrain herself. Ji Shanhai, on the other hand, was filled with joy and excitement. In her eyes, her father's image had suddenly become flesh and blood. He was no longer the aloof, unsmiling, and cold clan leader who seemed to have no human emotions. However, someone was extremely anxious and said, "Patriarch, if we do this, then our bloodline will definitely suffer a destructive blow. At that time, it wouldn't just be a matter of a few people who suffer grievances, it would be all of us. Yeah, if you give up the position of clan leader, then we'll probably be taken to be sinners and imprisoned, and we'll suffer unimaginable torture and humiliation." Some people tried to persuade Ji Wangtu. Ji Wangtu shook his head and said, "Everyone, don't worry. When I give up the position of clan leader, I will also make a request. I definitely won't implicate any of you." Clearly, he had already thought about this. The people's expressions were uncertain. Lin Sun was also very moved, and his impression of Ji Wangtu had changed greatly. Perhaps he had been incompetent as a father in the past, but it wasn't too late to rein in the horse before the precipice. At least at this moment, he could be Shi and Ji Shanhai's father. "Patriarch, let's not talk about this for now. How should we resolve the matter at hand?" Suddenly, someone's eyes turned cold. "This Lin Sun is the common enemy of all the eternal god clans. Now that he has appeared here and suppressed our clansmen, if we let him leave alive, It was obvious that he harbored malicious intentions. Ji Wangtu frowned, clearly feeling that this was an extremely troublesome matter. Before he came, he had never imagined that Lin Sun would appear here, and from the looks of it, Lin Sun was going to take his daughters away, and had even suppressed Ji Moliai and the others. How could Ji Wangtu not know that Lin Sun was completely on his daughter's side, and was even willing to disregard his own life for this? After all, this was the Ji clan's territory. In this world, who would dare to be like Lin Sun and risk everything to save Ji Wangtu's daughters? At this moment, she and Ji Shanhai were also conflicted and helpless. If Lin Sun was someone else, he wouldn't be like this. But he was the head of Yuan Qing Pavilion, the successor of the master of the square inch, and a thorn in the side of all the eternal god clans. Moreover, this was the core of the Ji clan. Under such circumstances, even if he wanted to save his life, it would be very difficult. In this heavy atmosphere, someone suddenly turned around and tried to rush out of the room. But with a bang, not only did the person fail to open the tightly shut door, but he was also shaken so much that he staggered and fell to the ground. Lin Sun's eyes flashed with mockery. He said, "Are you planning to leak the news and completely expose this matter to achieve your goal of killing me?" More updates. Chapter 31:13. The one squatting on the ground was called Ji Xiaohua, a nirvana realm existence. He and Ji Moliai were brothers, and according to seniority, he was Shi's uncle. Not being able to open the door and being forced to sit on the ground made Ji Xiaohua feel embarrassed. Hearing Lin Sun's undisguised sarcasm, Ji Xiaohua couldn't help but be furious. "Lin Sun, this is the Ji clan. Even if I don't say anything, do you think you can leave here alive?" He pointed at Lin Sun and scolded. As he spoke, he looked at Ji Wangtu. "Patriarch, if you save this person, not only will you be deprived of the Patriarch's authority, but you will also be regarded as a traitor to the clan. At that time, you and your 2 daughters will be executed and become the sinners of the clan. Even if you die, you will still be criticized." These words were very impolite, causing Ji Wangtu's expression to change slightly. "You talk too much." Lin Sun's black eyes were cold as he pressed his palm in the air. Bang! Ji Xiaohua was suppressed to the point of kneeling on the ground, and his aura collapsed. At the same time, his cultivation was completely destroyed. This scene shocked everyone present. They couldn't believe it. Ji Wangtu's hands and feet were cold. What should he do? Should he treat Lin Sun as an enemy, or he couldn't help but look at his daughter, She seemed to feel the struggle in Ji Wangtu's heart. She couldn't help but take a deep breath and said, "Father, it has already happened and it's hard to make up for it. Let's just leave the clan with Lin Sun." "Leave? Where else can we go in the 9th heaven? Not only the elders of the clan won't let us go, the Taihao clan won't let us go either." Ji Wangtu let out a long sigh, and his expression was bleak. He had been in charge of the Ji clan for many years, and he had a decisive temperament. However, today's matter was completely beyond his ability. No matter what choice he made, he would have to pay a heavy price. It could be said that pulling one hair would affect the whole body. "Let's go to the Yuan sect," she said directly. At this moment, she recovered her majestic demeanor. Her beautiful eyes were cold and calm. "As long as we reach the Yuan sect, both our clan and the Taihao clan will be helpless." "Ridiculous. Don't forget that you're the fiancé of the Taihao clan's young patriarch, Taihaoji, so the entire clan will absolutely not allow you to leave." Ji Moliai, who was kneeling on the ground, said harshly, "Back then, with your father's help, you were able to escape once. How could the clan possibly let such a thing happen a second time?" These words made the hearts of Ji Wangtu, Shi, and Ji Shanhai sink. This was the Ji clan's divine mountain of beginnings. Everywhere was covered under the divine order, and the eyes of the clan were everywhere. If these people wanted to leave, there was almost no hope. "Lin Sun, you really have a way to get us out of here?" She looked at Lin Sun. Lin Sun nodded. Of course, but before I leave, I have to avenge you. This answer was undoubtedly very domineering. Shido could not help but be startled. He felt both moved and amused. Why is this brat still thinking about venting for me? Doesn't he know how serious the situation is? Ji Wang-tu also frowned. How can I trust you? Lin Sun felt helpless. After thinking for a while, he had an idea. He waved his sleeves, and with a bang, a figure fell to the ground. Everyone should recognize who this is, right? It was a middle-aged man with a jade-like face, but he was currently in a sorry state. His cultivation had been completely sealed, and he was unconscious. And the moment they saw this person, many people cried out involuntarily, "Old Ancestor Dongya! How is this possible?" Everyone present was shocked, and revealed looks of disbelief. Ji Dongya, a late-stage transcendent realm existence, and one of the eternal realm elders of the Ji clan. His seniority was frighteningly high, but now he was in a pitiful state. This old fellow ran to the primordial realm to act violently, and I subdued him. Lin Sun looked at Shi and said casually, "The reason why I did not kill him was because I was not sure of his relationship with you, senior." She was stunned, and his heart felt warm. Ji Wang-tu said, "If we take old ancestor Dongya as a hostage, there is hope for us to leave the clan. But if we do that, it is equivalent to completely breaking off relations with the clan." Lin Sun also understood Ji Wang-tu's feelings. At least for now, Ji Wang-tu was still the clan leader of the Ji clan. He had too many things to consider, and the things he had to worry about had also increased. But Lin Sun knew that if he continued to delay like this, it would undoubtedly waste too much time. Thinking of this, he said directly, "Everyone, I am not thinking of using Ji Dongya's life as a hostage, but there is no need to do so." As he spoke, he flipped his palm, and a fist-sized divine mountain appeared. Does anyone recognize this mountain? At this time, Lin Sun could only take out some things to prove himself. Ji Wang-tu's pupils shrank, and he said in shock, "Vast Sun God Mountain?" Everyone else was shocked as well. This was a blessed place of the eternal God clan's Yang clan. How did it fall into Lin Sun's hands? "Yes, it is Vast Sun God Mountain," Lin Sun nodded. What did you do to the Yang clan?" Ji Wang-tu's breathing quickened. It was no wonder that he could not remain calm. Vast Sun God Mountain had fallen into Lin Sun's hands. This inevitably made people think of the eternal God clan's Yang clan. Everyone else was also shocked, and their hearts trembled. They had roughly guessed something, but they could not believe it at all. However, Lin Sun said casually, "The Yang clan saw me as an enemy, and they were uprooted 3 months ago. In other words, there may be remnants of the Yang clan in this world now, but the eternal God clan's Yang clan no longer exists." Boom! Everyone felt as if they were struck by lightning. The eternal God clan's Yang clan was destroyed? At this moment, even the Ji clansmen who were kneeling on the ground were dumbfounded. "You did it all by yourself?" After a while, she couldn't help but ask. Lin Sun nodded and said with a bitter smile, "Senior, I have already said before that the eternal God clan in this world is no longer a threat to me, but you don't seem to truly believe me. I can only take out some facts to prove it." Shi's eyes became subtle, and he said, "To be honest, even now I dare not believe that the eternal God clan's Yang clan has been uprooted by you. Such a thing is too shocking. Let alone me, even if anyone in the 9th heaven knew about it, they would definitely find it hard to believe. After all, that is the eternal God clan. How could it be destroyed just like that?" Everyone deeply agreed with his words. Yes, the eternal God clan had existed since ancient times. When had they ever been shaken by anyone? Who would dare to believe that such a behemoth would suddenly collapse? Seeing this, Lin Sun only felt tired. Just as he was thinking about how to further prove all this, she smiled and said, "However, I believe that you can do it." Her starry eyes were bright, and there was an extraordinary splendor and shock in them. Strange. No wonder this kid was getting more and more overbearing. It turned out that he was fearless. That's enough. Lin Sun also smiled. At this moment, Ji Wangtu also seemed to wake up from a dream. He let out a long breath and said with a complicated look in his eyes, Lin Sun, let me ask you again. What is your purpose in coming to the Ji clan? Lin Sun said bluntly, if not for Senior Shi and Miss Shanhai, the Ji clan is destined to be uprooted like the Yang clan. Now, I only have two things to do. One is to help Senior Shi vent her anger, and the other is to take her and Miss Shanhai away. After a pause, he looked at Ji Wangtu and said, of course, if Senior and other close clansmen want to leave together, I won't leave anyone behind. Hearing this, Ji Wangtu's heart churned. After a while, he said, forget it. Just do as you wish. The expressions of the others around Ji Wangtu were still in a state of shock. The truth that Lin Sun had revealed was too unexpected. How could they accept it in such a short time? Ji Shanhai's beautiful eyes sparkled as she said happily, Brother Lin, it turns out that you have become so powerful. Now we can all leave alive. Impossible, this is impossible. Ji Moliai, who was kneeling on the ground, screamed as if he was on the verge of collapse. Who could believe that Lin Sun alone had the ability to topple an eternal god clan? Lin Sun couldn't be bothered to explain anything to this kind of trash. He stretched out his hand and grabbed. Ji Moliai's body turned into ashes and scattered, and his spirit was pulled out. Boom! Lin Sun's divine sense swept out like a storm and began to search his soul. Seeing this incomparably domineering scene, no one present stopped him. Instead, Shi and Ji Shanhai felt extremely delighted. Among the clansmen they hated the most, there was no doubt that Ji Moliai was one. After a short while, Lin Sun completely understood what he wanted to know. For example, he remembered exactly who in the Ji clan was hostile towards Shi and Ji Shanhai. There were quite a few of them in this room, like Ji Xiaohua, Ji Qiao, and so on. With a bang, Ji Moliai's spirit was crushed like a bubble. Lin Sun's gaze was already on some of the Ji clansmen present. What are you doing? Someone shouted with a trembling voice. How could Lin Sun be polite? He flicked his fingers. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Sword chi swept out one after another, killing these hostile Ji clansmen on the spot. All of them were destroyed in body and soul. Ji Wangtu's expression was extremely complicated, but he didn't stop Lin Sun. The surviving Ji clansmen were all frightened. Once Lin Sun started his revenge, he simply didn't know what was polite. He killed people like they were weeds. The more casual he was, the colder he seemed. Soon, only Shi, Ji Shanhai, Ji Wangtu, and a few others were left. People like Ji Xiaohua, Ji Moliai, and Ji Qiao were all killed on the spot. Of course, Ji Dongyao, an eternal realm existence, was still there. Lin Sun put him away. He planned to use the power of the 5 sequences of the ultimate to refine him in the future. After thinking for a while, Lin Sun looked at Shi and said, Senior, why don't you stay here for a while and let me take care of the rest? He was worried that Shi, Ji Shanhai, and Ji Wangtu would feel uncomfortable when he killed those old fellows of the Ji clan, or they might not have the heart to do it. It was better to do it himself. It should be known that all 12 eternal gods regarded Lin Sun as a thorn in their side, and the Ji clan was no exception. If not for Shi, he would have already started a massacre and carried out his revenge. Literature Hall. Chapter 31:14. Lin Sun's words made Ji Wangtu's heart skip a beat. Young friend, don't act recklessly. Senior, don't worry. I know what I'm doing, Lin Sun said. Thinking about it, Ji Wangtu took a deep breath and said, Young friend, if you trust me, why don't you come with me to see someone? With his help, we might get twice the result with half the effort. Lin Sun wanted to refuse, but she couldn't help but say, Father, you want to take Lin Sun to see old ancestor Ji? Ji Wangtu nodded. She hesitated. Old ancestor Ji, he controls our clan's divine order and has always been neutral. She doesn't care about our clan's dispute. Will she agree to help? Ji Wangtu's eyes flashed as he looked at Lin Sun. At that time, with young friend Lin Sun here, old ancestor Ji, he might change her attitude. She immediately understood and said, "Father, you want Lin Sun to take the divine order. As long as he controls this power, he will have the upper hand." Ji Wangtu's expression was complicated. This is the only way. Otherwise, if there is a serious internal strife, the innocent clansmen will be involved. Lin Sun couldn't help but sigh. Old Ginger was spicier. Ji Wangtu's move could be said to have grasped the key. If he controlled the divine order, apart from the few old fellows in the eternal realm, who else would dare to act rashly? According to the information he had gathered, he was in existence in the exceptional realm of rules transgressing and one of the 3 eternal realm experts in the Ji clan. And according to Ji Wangtu's words, this he was clearly a neutral party. Let's go. Ji Wangtu planned to act. Lin Sun thought about it and was still worried. He looked at Shi and Ji Shanhai and said, "Why don't you hide in my treasure for now?" Okay. She couldn't help but think of the years when he was with Lin Sun in the heaven-accessing secret land. Ji Shanhai naturally wouldn't refuse. Lin Sun immediately placed the 2 sisters in the abyssal sword cauldron. To prevent the news from leaking, please bear with it. Lin Sun looked at the big shots of the Ji clan beside Ji Wangtu. They looked at each other but chose to obey. Lin Sun also put these people into the treasure. Ji Wangtu saw everything and thought to himself, this kid is really thoughtful. It's not a bad thing if my daughter follows him to the Yuan sect. Senior, let's go. As Lin Sun said, he had removed the restriction power around the room. Ji Wangtu nodded and led the way. Forbidden Ridge. For countless years, the core area of the ancestral land of the Ji clan had been guarded by the eternal realm experts of the clan. Ever since a boundless stage existence and 3 creation stage existences from the Ji clan left for the Kunlun ruins decades ago, he had been in charge of this place. The forbidden Broken Mountain Range occupied an area of 3,000 meters, and a mysterious and obscure divine-level energy fluctuation was rising from it. On the mountain ridge stood an ancient palace. When Ji Wangtu and Lin Sun arrived at the forbidden Broken Ridge, an indifferent and cold voice came from the ancient palace. "What are you doing here, Patriarch?" Ji Wangtu cupped his hands slightly and said, "I have something important to discuss with you, Patriarch. Please meet me. Tomorrow is Shi-Er's wedding day. As a father, you didn't receive the guests who came to celebrate, but came to me instead. Could it be that you're still not reconciled? Shi-Er will be married off just like this?" He sighed softly. "Fine, it's fine if you want to talk, but I have to remind you that this matter is already done. There's no turning back, and I can't help you." A wisp of dejection flashed between Ji Wangtu's brows, and then he took a deep breath and was about to stride towards the forbidden ridge. Right at this moment, Ji's voice resounded out. "Wait, who's that young man by your side?" Ji Wangtu cupped his hands and said, "Patriarch, this is Shi-Er's friend. He just arrived at our clan today, and he also wants to meet you." "Wants to meet me?" He was obviously a little surprised. At the same time, Lin Sun keenly sensed that a huge divine sense swept over from the palace and fell on him. Lin Sun's expression remained unchanged, and he cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, fellow practitioner." He didn't deliberately conceal his cultivation that belonged to the late stage of rules transgressing realm, otherwise, he would not be able to see through it, and thus become suspicious. However, after sensing Lin Sun's cultivation, he was obviously a little surprised. The next moment, her figure appeared in front of the palace on the mountain, and she said, "An eternal realm existence? Why didn't I know that Shi-Er had such a friend?" At the same time, Lin Sun also saw Ji. She was petite, dressed in a black robe, and her skin was snow-white. Her black hair was combed into a braid, revealing a face as beautiful as a young girl's. Her big eyes were extremely beautiful and intelligent, but they were filled with coldness and indifference. Especially when she looked over, It was like a pair of lightning piercing through the sky, extremely frightening. I'm Lin Sun. Lin Sun didn't waste any time, and directly revealed his identity. Lin Sun. Ji He's beautiful eyes froze, and she was extremely surprised. You've already reached the eternal realm? And the late stage of rules transgressing realm? Immediately, she realized that she had lost her composure, or in other words, she focused on the wrong point. Why was Lin Sun here? Could it be Ji He's eyes were filled with coldness, and she looked at Ji Wangtu, Patriarch, what on earth is going on? Could it be that you secretly colluded with Yuan's sect to prevent Shi-Er from marrying out? A vast and unparalleled might spread from her petite and exquisite body. Her black robes fluttered in the wind, revealing her snow-white and crystal-clear calves. Old ancestor, you misunderstood. Ji Wangtu took a deep breath and said, Please allow me to explain. Ji He also had many doubts in her heart, and she immediately restrained her anger and said, Well, I'd like to see what kind of explanation you, the Patriarch, will give me. Ji Wangtu's explanation was not complicated, and he explained the purpose of Lin Sun's visit to the Ji clan. Without waiting for him to finish, Ji He laughed out of extreme anger. In my Ji clan's territory, he even dared to murder my clansmen, and you, as the Patriarch, actually came to explain this to me on behalf of your enemy. How absurd is that? Her delicate face became gloomy, and it was covered with frost. She was so angry that she almost couldn't control the killing intent in her heart. However, Lin Sun said indifferently, Enemy? You can say that, but you're wrong about one thing. If it weren't for the sake of Shi and Miss Shanghai, I'm afraid the Ji clan would have been removed from the world today. What a big tone! Ji He sneered, How dare you, a character in the late stage of transcendent state, talk nonsense about destroying the Ji clan? Ji Wangtu couldn't help but say, Old ancestor, just 3 months ago, the eternal Yang clan was completely destroyed by Lin Sun. What? Ji He was startled, as if she had heard wrong. You said the Yang clan was destroyed? Ji Wangtu nodded. The vast sun god mountain of the Yang clan has been refined by Lin Sun. The news hasn't spread yet, but it can be foreseen that the entire ninth heaven will know about this soon. Ji He still couldn't believe it, and felt it was extremely absurd. Although the Yang clan's foundation is not as strong as our Ji clan, they are also an eternal god clan. The clan has Yang Jiatian and Yang Budong, and they have the protection of the vast sun order. How could anyone in this world be able to destroy them? She wanted to continue, but Lin Sun was too lazy to listen anymore. With a wave of his sleeve, the vast sun god mountain appeared. Just take a look for yourself. Lin Sun was very unwilling to use this method to convince someone. It felt like he was boasting. But Ji He's behavior made him realize that if he didn't take out these evidence, she probably wouldn't believe everything that happened in the Yang clan. It really is the vast sun god mountain. Ji He's expression showed uncontrollable shock. With her cultivation, she naturally wouldn't mistake it. And the vast sun god mountain was refined by Lin Sun. It could be imagined how miserable the Yang clan was. Ji He's expression was uncertain. After a long silence, she looked at Ji Wangtu and Lin Sun. Tell me, why did you come to me? Ji Wangtu secretly heaved a sigh of relief and said, Old ancestor, I hope to borrow the divine order to eradicate those traitors in the clan. He didn't say that it was to help Shi vent his anger. In fact, since the last time she escaped from the clan, he, as the clan leader, had been in an extremely difficult and unbearable situation. In these years, he was simply like a puppet. Otherwise, how could he watch his daughter be grounded, and how could he let his daughter marry in grievance? That was why he chose to help Lin Sun. Because he knew that helping Lin Sun was helping his own clan, and also helping his pair of daughters. Are you planning to let our Ji clan kill each other? Ji He's pupils shrank and she said coldly, If so, I definitely can't agree. An indescribable unwillingness surged in Ji Wangtu's heart, and with a complicated expression, he said, Ancestor, you've seen how unbearable my situation in the clan has been all these years. Do you think that if this situation continues, I, the clan leader, am still the clan leader?" His voice was full of deep anger. He sighed softly and said, "But you can't harm your own clansmen. It's them who are harming my daughter." Wangtu was completely furious. "How they treat me, the clan leader, I can bear it. But now even my daughter is forced to marry out. What kind of father am I? What kind of clan leader am I?" He was silent for a moment and said after a while, "I can promise you other things, but I can't promise you this one. In the end, we still have to do it." Seeing this, Lin Sun, who had been silent, shook his head and sighed softly. As he spoke, he had already stepped up to the forbidden broken ridge. He's pupils shrank and she waved her sleeve. Boom! Above and below the forbidden broken ridge, the dazzling power of order emerged and bombarded Lin Sun like a flood bursting a dam. The starting order. It was the foundation of the Ji clan, which had protected the Ji clan for countless years, and the greatest foundation for the Ji clan to become the eternal God clan and look down on all the heavens. Now, this power of order was controlled by Ji, and it attacked Lin Sun. Chapter 31:15. Boom! The surging power of order was pure and thick, and when it struck, it was like a whip from the heavens, flashing with a frightening light. This kind of power was enough to make any eternal transcendent realm cultivator tremble. If Lin Sun had just arrived at the ninth heaven, he might have needed to use his full strength. But now his figure was like an incomparably sharp blade, emitting a dazzling light as he soared into the sky. The mighty order of Genesis was like a waterfall that was torn apart by Lin Sun's figure, and he was like a hot knife through butter all the way. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of the palace on the forbidden mountain range. When Ji reacted, Lin Sun was already in front of her. Her big and beautiful eyes suddenly dilated, and her delicate and exquisite body suddenly tightened. Almost instinctively, she took out a snow-white machete and slashed it out. The machete was long and narrow, curved like a crescent moon, and incomparably sharp. When it was swung, it seemed to be able to cut through time and space. But this machete was caught by Lin Sun. The sharp blade rubbed against his palm, and light splashed, producing a sharp, ear-piercing sound. In the next moment, it was firmly imprisoned, unable to break the skin of Lin Sun's palm. This made Ji's expression change completely. A terrifying eternal Tao light erupted from her body, and just as she was about to fight back, Lin Sun grabbed her snow-white delicate neck. The terrifying power imprisoned her entire body, and she could no longer move. At the foot of the mountain, Wangtu was shivering. In an instant, he broke the origin order, blocked the machete, and strangled her. Lin Sun's lightning-fast method was so tyrannical that even a transcendent realm existence like Wangtu was completely shocked, and couldn't believe it. He was one of the 3 eternal realm ancestors of the Ji clan, and she controlled the origin order. Others in the same realm couldn't compare to her. But under such circumstances, she was easily captured by Lin Sun. This was undoubtedly too terrifying, and subverted Wangtu's understanding. It was also at this moment that he finally dared to believe that the eternal Yang clan was destroyed by Lin Sun alone. So what if he was in the eternal realm? So what if he was in the God-level order? He was no match for Lin Sun at all. You can't talk nicely and you have to fight. Why bother? Lin Sun sighed. Now that he thought about it, if it wasn't for the fact that he had to worry about Ji Shi and Ji Shanhai's safety, if it wasn't for the fact that he had yet to fully understand the Ji clan situation, he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. He would have charged in long ago. There was no way he would have wasted so much time and words. Ji's hands and feet felt cold. Her body was petite and exquisite, and she looked like a young girl. Now that Lin Sun was holding her by the neck, her pretty face flushed red like a rosy cloud. She was extremely angry and terrified. She couldn't imagine how she would lose so quickly. Cut the crap. If you want to kill me, just do it. Do you think I'll even frown? He glared at Lin Sun and gritted his teeth. Lin Sun said, You should be glad that you have never treated she and Miss Shanghai badly. Otherwise, you will die today. Now, I can only let you suffer for a while. With that, he suppressed He in the abyssal sword cauldron. Then, he turned around and walked into an ancient palace on the side. Previously, Lin Sun had sensed that the origin power belonging to the original order was in this ancient palace. As expected, Lin Sun found it as soon as he entered the palace. It was an ancient square Taoist altar. In the center of the Taoist altar was a dark green jade ruler, which emitted a dense and astonishing fluctuation of order. Lin Sun took a deep breath and activated the Nirvana essence. Using the profound meaning of order, he reached out his hand to grab the pale green jade ruler. Buzz! The jade ruler shook violently and tried to struggle, but to no avail. In just a moment, it was subdued by Lin Sun and became extremely docile. Ji Wangtu, who had just arrived at the entrance of the palace, happened to see this scene. His eyes widened. Lin Sun had subdued the Ji clan's divine level order so easily. This caused Ji Wangtu's heart to churn. How could he possibly remain calm? Senior, don't worry. I will return this divine level order. Lin Sun turned around and explained softly. Although the divine level order was good, Lin Sun wouldn't forcibly take it for himself out of respect for she. Ji Wangtu said in a daze, What do you plan to do next? Lin Sun said, I advise Senior not to act with me. Of course, if Senior wants to follow, I won't stop you. As he spoke, he had already walked out of the palace and was heading out of the forbidden Broken Mountain. Ji Wangtu wanted to rush forward several times. He was worried that Lin Sun would be too ruthless and hurt other innocent clansmen. But in the end, he shook his head bitterly. For this kind of thing, even if he followed, what could he change? He might as well not watch. Divine Mountain of Origin, Central Shrine. This place was decorated with lanterns and streamers, and it was bustling with noise and excitement. The huge Taoist field in front of the central shrine was already filled with banquets. Many guests who had come to visit and celebrate were present. There were even more who didn't have a seat and could only stay in the nearby area. As far as the eye could see, the central shrine was filled with a sea of people. It was a magnificent sight. And those present were all important people with status and prestige. Each of them had an extraordinary air about them. Beautiful maids served the field like butterflies. Servants and manservants presented all kinds of delicacies like flowing water. There was also the sound of celestial music and fluttering pipe. It was a festive and lively scene. As expected of the Eternal God clan, some experienced and knowledgeable elders secretly sighed with emotion on such an occasion. They were shocked by the grandeur of the Ji clan. There are many immortal-level characters in this event, but they can only sit in the Taoist field. What kind of distinguished guests are qualified to have a seat in the central shrine? Many people occasionally looked towards the magnificent central Dao Palace in the distance. On the 108 stone steps, there was a red carpet woven with auspicious divine materials. On both sides of the stone steps, there were incense burners carved with dragons and phoenixes. The interior of the divine palace above the stone steps was a splendid scene. There was also a banquet there. However, only the most distinguished guests were allowed to attend. This was naturally enviable, but everyone knew that the distance between the central shrine and this Taoist field was like a natural chasm. In the ninth heaven, unless it was a character from the Eternal God clan, it was impossible for others to enter the central shrine in their lifetime. I heard that some clansmen of the Taihao clan have arrived today. They are now in the central shrine, discussing with the two Eternal Realm old ancestors of the Ji clan about tomorrow's wedding. I also heard that there are other big shots from the Eternal God clan, such as the Panwu clan, the Ju clan, the Yi clan, and so on. It is said that even the weakest among them has the cultivation of the transcendent realm great perfection. This is the foundation of the eternal God clan. With the marriage between the Ji clan and the Taihao clan, how can other eternal God clans not come to celebrate? In the Taoist field, all kinds of discussions sounded. Their voices were filled with respect and envy. On a seat at the furthest edge, an old man in a python robe with fluttering hair and a sage-like demeanor was chatting with the people beside him. Suddenly, he inadvertently noticed a familiar figure with a glance. It's that guy. The old man in the official robe recognized the tall figure at a glance. It was the young man he brought into the divine mountain of beginning with incredible combat power. What is he doing here at this time? Looking at the young man's calm and indifferent posture, the old man felt an inexplicable panic in his heart. At the same time, Lin Sun also saw the old man, but he ignored him. He looked at the towering central divine palace in the distance. The palace was decorated with lanterns and streamers, and the atmosphere was magnificent. Tomorrow, the Taihao clan's wedding procession would bring Shi away from here. However, only Lin Sun knew that this wouldn't happen. He placed his hands behind his back and walked along the main path of the Taoist field. Along the way, many gazes swept over him. However, most of them didn't recognize him. Of course, he didn't cause any commotion. However, when they noticed that he was walking towards the central divine palace, he finally attracted a lot of attention. Who is that person? Is he also an extremely noble person? I'm not sure. His appearance is too unfamiliar. I've never seen him before. Some people started discussing. The old man in the official robe, who had been paying attention to Lin Sun's movements, became even more anxious. This guy. Is he planning to barge into the central divine palace? Among everyone present, only he knew that Lin Sun wasn't a noble guest. He didn't even have an invitation. At this moment, seeing that Lin Sun was gradually approaching the central divine palace, a group of guards of the Ji clan sensed that something was wrong and stepped forward to stop him. It's over. If the Ji clan finds out that this guy was brought in by me, I'm afraid that my cultivation path will be ruined. The old man in the official robe felt his heart turn cold. Your Excellency, please stop. No one is allowed to approach the central divine palace without an invitation. The leading powerhouse of the Ji clan had a dignified expression. He looked Lin Sun up and down with suspicion in his eyes. Lin Sun glanced at these people and said, "Move aside." Then, these powerhouses of the Ji clan seemed to be grabbed by an invisible hand. They retreated uncontrollably to the sides and made way for the spacious stone path covered with a red carpet. These powerhouses of the Ji clan were shocked and angry. They opened their mouths and shouted, but no sound came out. They struggled with all their might, but they couldn't even lift a finger. All of them were nailed there like wooden stakes. Many people in the huge Taoist field noticed this scene. Their expressions changed slightly as they sensed that something was wrong. The originally noisy and lively atmosphere became much quieter. There were many people of the Ji clan scattered around the huge Taoist field. At this moment, they couldn't help but show astonishment. Who was that guy? They couldn't imagine who in this world dared to come to their Ji clan and behave atrociously at this time. More importantly, this was the central divine palace, the core area of the Ji clan. At this moment, who knew how many bigwigs had gathered in the central divine palace? As long as one's brain was slightly normal, who would be stupid enough to behave atrociously here? While these people of the Ji clan were stunned, Lin Sun had already stepped onto the 108 stone steps leading to the central divine palace. Stop! There were naturally guards stationed in front of the central divine palace. Each of them was dressed in shiny armor and looked mighty and intimidating. When they saw Lin Sun walking up the steps, they immediately formed a line of defense and stopped him. 3 updates in a row. First, I'll seriously ask everyone for monthly votes, then, I'll seriously say one thing. Well, if nothing unexpected happens, next month, which is December, Tianjiao will be finished. Chapter 31:16. Stop. Just 2 words, but it was like a thunderclap. The powerhouses guarding the main hall of the Central Divine Palace were all immortal-level characters of the Ji clan. At this moment, they were all filled with murderous intent as they locked onto Lin Sun. Ordinary people would have stopped in their tracks upon seeing such a lineup. But in Lin Sun's eyes, how could he put these characters in his eyes? He raised his eyes and looked at the Central Divine Palace, then at the immortal-level existences who were staring at him covetously. Fortunately, there's no one I can't kill. Lin Sun opened his mouth and said something that made everyone feel puzzled. In the next moment, he stepped forward. Bang bang bang! On the huge dojo, under countless horrified gazes, the bodies of the 18 immortal-level existences of the Ji clan who were blocking in front of Lin Sun exploded. Like a row of firecrackers being ignited, a poignant scarlet firework bloomed. It was a shocking sight. It was unknown how many people were shocked. The originally lively and noisy banquet suddenly became chaotic. The cultivators who were still chatting and laughing stopped what they were doing and looked over. Their expressions changed drastically. He dared to kill people here? Someone screamed, his scalp tingling. This was the divine mountain of beginning, the territory of the eternal god clan's Ji clan. Since ancient times, who dared to commit murder here? No one. Not to mention ordinary people. Even eternal realm existences didn't dare to do anything in the Ji clan's base. So strong, he killed a group of immortal-level existences with one strike. It was unknown how many people were shocked by the bloody scene. Without a doubt, this young man who dared to commit murder here was definitely a terrifying existence. Otherwise, how could he do it in front of the Ji clan's Central Divine Palace? Does he not want to live? Someone's heart trembled. This marriage alliance between the Ji clan and the Taihao clan had already caused a sensation in the world a few days ago, attracting the attention of all major forces in the ninth heaven. That was especially true today. Honored guests from the other eternal gods had gathered in the Central Divine Palace, and accompanying them were the 2 eternal realm ancestors of the Ji clan, Ji Xiaoyun and Ji Beifeng. Under such circumstances, someone actually dared to make a move. How could people not be shocked? They were simply dumbfounded. Heavens! The python-robed old man completely lost control of himself. His eyes were wide open as he stood there in a daze. Even if he racked his brains, he would never have imagined that this young man who had kidnapped him to the divine mountain of beginning would do something so crazy at this moment. And in this shocking atmosphere, Lin Sun stepped forward and came to the end of the stone steps. His tall and lonely figure became the focus of attention. Previously, the Central Divine Palace was filled with a peaceful and relaxed atmosphere. Ji Xiaoyun and Ji Beifeng sat at the top, frequently toasting the guests in the hall. Their seniority was extremely high, and ordinary people did not have the qualifications to be personally received by them. This time, however, was different. The guests seated in the Central Divine Palace were all honored guests from the other eternal gods. Panwu clan, Zhu clan, Yi clan, Wen clan of the 12 eternal gods, 9 had come. These people who came to celebrate were all important figures in the eternal god clan. They were all transcendent realm undying cultivators. Under eternity, transcendence reigned supreme. Including some important figures of the Ji clan, there were more than 30 transcendent realm existences in the central shrine. It was a place filled with nobles. In order to prevent the outside world from disturbing the atmosphere in the main hall, the central shrine had already been surrounded by invisible restraints. As a result, while the outside world was extremely noisy, the main hall was peaceful and tranquil. It is the Ji clan's honor to have all of you come to celebrate my Ji Shi's marriage. Let me toast everyone again. Ji Xiaoyun smiled and raised his cup. He was dressed in a Taoist robe and had a youthful complexion and white hair. When he spoke, everyone raised their cups and drank together. "Why hasn't anyone from the Yang clan come this time?" Suddenly, someone asked. Everyone present knew that the Ji clan and the Yang clan had a very close relationship. However, no one from the Yang clan had come to celebrate today. This was a bit unusual. Ji Xiaoyun paused, then smiled. Half a month ago, the Yang clan's Changyang Tsangxing sent word that he would send someone over. Perhaps they will only arrive tomorrow. This was just a small interlude. Everyone's topic quickly shifted to the world's situation. As they chatted, they inevitably talked about Yuan's sect and Lin Sun. Some time ago, the Ninth Heaven's 7 eternal god clans each sent an eternal realm existence to the 7th heaven. They went to Yuan's sect with 2 eternal realm existences from witchcraft and Zen's sect to deal with Lin Sun. However, the result was the same as the first time they attacked Yuan's sect. All of them were annihilated. Although nearly half a year had passed, the impact of this matter was too great. It was still a sore point for the eternal god clans to this day. Now they had roughly deduced that Lin Sun must have successfully passed the eternity retribution, and that the 9 eternal realm existences were most likely killed by him. This was easy to speculate. Just like when Lin Sun went to the Yang clan to declare war, the eternal realm existences such as Yang Qiaoyan and Yang Bai had already deduced some of the truth from the clues. However, until now, no one dared to confirm that this was true, because it was too unbelievable. Everyone was clearly aware that the opportunity to attain eternity had been severed a long time ago before the calamity of an era descended. But unusually, Lin Sun had caused an eternal calamity. Besides that, the most terrifying thing to the eternal gods was that the existence behind the calamity of an era had been the one who'd tried to kill Lin Sun. This undoubtedly proved that it was very likely that the existence behind the calamity of the era felt deeply threatened by Lin Sun's path towards the Tao. Lin Sun is really a scourge, someone couldn't help sighing. The others also nodded in agreement. Speaking of Lin Sun, these big shots were also disgusted and hostile. In the short span of 100 years, Lin Sun had annihilated the 10 immortal realm giants of their respective clans. Lin Sun had attacked the Origin sect twice, and each of the 12 eternal god clans had lost an eternal realm expert. How could they not hate Lin Sun? If it wasn't for the calamity of the era, how could my Taihao clan possibly allow this bastard to continue running wild? An old man of the Taihao clan said coldly. Someone said softly, "No matter what, this child has now become a great threat. With him presiding over the Origin sect in the future, I'm afraid it will be very difficult to find an opportunity to kill him." For a time, many big shots sighed endlessly. Who would have thought that a remnant of the core realm, who didn't even put him in their eyes before, would rise so quickly? Haha, you don't have to worry about this. This child has already been targeted by the existence behind the calamity of an era. It won't be long. Ji Xiaoyun saw that the atmosphere was a little gloomy and couldn't help but laugh. What's more, no matter how fierce and arrogant this child is, he definitely won't dare to come to our 9th heaven and act wildly. Otherwise, he will definitely suffer the consequences. Everyone laughed when they heard this. Indeed, this was the 9th heaven, the territory of the 12 eternal god clans. Since ancient times, no one had dared to act violently here. The master of the core realm couldn't. Even Lin Sun, the disciple of the master of the core realm, couldn't. Speaking of which, I can't wait for this child to come to the 9th heaven. In that case, we can take revenge and vent the hatred in our hearts. Ji Bei Fenglang said with a smile. He was dressed in a yellow robe and was as handsome as jade. He looked like a young man, but in fact, he was an old monster who had lived for tens of thousands of years. At this moment, a ripple appeared in the restriction power that covered the central palace. Then, a figure appeared in front of the main hall of the central divine palace and strode in. Revenge? Yes, but it depends on whether you have the ability to do it. The person who came was Lin Sun. He seemed as if he was taking a leisurely stroll in the courtyard as he walked into the magnificent hall that was filled with guests. At this moment, all the big shots present were startled, and then their pupils shrank. They all revealed looks of disbelief. This is the central Dao Palace, the core of the Ji clan. But now, someone broke in. Unlike other cultivators, these big shots had already seen Lin Sun's true appearance in various news. When they saw him appear at this time, they were shocked and stunned. Lin Sun. On the central seat, Ji Xiaoyun suddenly stood up, his eyes flashing with a terrifying luster. I didn't expect that you would dare to come to the ninth heaven and break into the territory of my Ji clan. You're really bold. Lin Sun. The big shots in the hall all stood up with a bewildered expression. At this moment, they finally dared to believe that it was indeed Lin Sun who came. Moreover, he directly broke into the Ji clan and appeared in front of them. This obviously meant that he came with ill intentions. For a time, the atmosphere in the hall was oppressive and incomparably somber. The pressure of so many big shots spread out together, surging and rolling in the hall. How terrifying was that! The attendants and maids were already trembling with fear, and their knees were weak. Only Lin Sun seemed to be completely unaware of it. He walked to the center of the hall and glanced around. Seeing the bewildered expressions on everyone's faces, he said indifferently, "Everyone, I heard you talking before, and you said that you couldn't wait for this Lin to come. Now this Lin is here. If you have enmity, take revenge. If you have grievances, take revenge." His words resounded through the hall and echoed endlessly. The old monsters were all bewildered, and those people were even more frightened. Although they were incomparably noble and had the most powerful cultivation, they had never set foot in the eternal realm after all. At this moment, facing Lin Sun who suddenly appeared, how could they not be afraid? "Everyone, don't panic. In the territory of my Ji clan, there's no room for a remnant to run wild," Ji Beifeng said coldly. His words reminded everyone and made them suddenly realize that yes, this was the nest of the Ji clan. With Ji Xiaoyun and Ji Beifeng, who were at the eternal realm, there was no need to be afraid. On the contrary, Lin Sun actually came alone. What was the difference between this and courting death? It's also my clan's fault for being negligent. I didn't expect that before tomorrow's big day, an evil creature like Lin Sun would sneak into the clan and disturb everyone's mood. Ji Xiaoyun sighed softly, his eyes staring coldly at Lin Sun. However, this is not a bad thing. It's a good thing to take this opportunity to kill him here. For my Ji clan, it can be regarded as joy on top of joy. Chapter 31:17. Happiness on top of happiness. Hearing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but sneer and said, "I really want to see what it means to have more joy on top of joy." With that, he no longer suppressed his aura. Boom! It was as if an ancient wild beast had awakened within Lin Sun's body. A terrifying aura spread out in the center of the hall like a landslide and a tsunami. The nearby banquet tables instantly transformed into powder that drifted into the air. The expressions of the transcendent realm immortals changed greatly, and they dodged in a sorry state. Just this aura alone made them feel suffocated. Their bodies ached, and their minds showed signs of being completely suppressed. In the blink of an eye, the central shrine was a mess. Looking at Lin Sun again, his tall figure was surrounded by the obscure and mysterious eternal Taoist light. His clothes were fluttering in the wind. He seemed to be in front of them, but he was like the ruler above the ninth heaven, giving people a sense of unreachable loftiness. His dark eyes were like an abyss, and his aura suppressed all directions. Transcendent realm late stage. Ji Xiaoyun's pupils shrank. He was shocked by Lin Sun's strength. It had been less than half a year since Lin Sun broke through to the eternal realm, but he was already in the transcendent realm late stage. This speed of advancement was simply too shocking. "Beifeng, invite Ji He over." As Ji Xiaoyun spoke, he waved his sleeve, and a purple gold pagoda appeared in the air. Buzz! The purple-golden eternal light of Tao spread, steaming with mountain-like power, and pressed down on Lin Sun. He had no choice but to act. Lin Sun's aura was too strong. If he didn't suppress it, it would definitely affect the others in the hall. If these distinguished guests from the other Eternal God clans were to suffer, the Ji clan wouldn't be able to escape the blame. Boom! The purple-gold pagoda flew through the air, and the body of the pagoda emitted a dazzling light that resembled billions of divine chains. Lin Sun didn't dodge, and instead flicked his finger. Clang! Amidst the deafening sound of collision, the violet gold pagoda was fiercely blasted away. The scattering rain of light was filled with an extremely terrifying destructive power. In the blink of an eye, the huge stone pillars that supported the central divine palace collapsed one after another. Under such an impact, several transcendent realm immortals couldn't dodge in time, and were directly killed on the spot. Run! Let's go! Shrill cries of terror resounded, and all the other great figures in the hall panicked and fled for their lives. But how could Lin Sun let them go? He pressed his hands together in the air. Boom! With him at the center, the terrifying eternal laws spread out in all directions like a raging space-time storm. The entire hall was engulfed by the eternal Tao light. No! Save me! Help me! Lin Sun, you will die a horrible death! Shrill, terrified, despairing, and furious cries rose and fell, and then they stopped abruptly. The immortals, whether they were from the other eternal gods or the Ji clan, were all scared out of their wit. No one survived. It wasn't that Ji Xiaoyun didn't want to save them, but when Lin Sun attacked, he could only use all his strength to resolve the attack. How could he be distracted to save others? Ji Beifeng, who had originally planned to ask Ji He for help, was also affected and could only protect himself. Boom! As the power released by Lin Sun's attack spread out, the central divine palace, which was built by the Ji clan's ancestors with various divine materials, was severely impacted and collapsed. Countless cries of shock resounded in the huge dojo. The central divine palace collapsed. It's over! My God, could it be that those great figures couldn't take down that person just now? Hide! Panic and panic spread like a tide, and on the enormous square, there were figures fleeing and dodging everywhere. It was a complete mess. Every expert's face was filled with shock. Who could have imagined that such a disaster would happen on the day of the Ji clan's big day tomorrow? At this moment, even the central divine palace, which was regarded as the core of the Ji clan, had collapsed. Everything happened too quickly, catching everyone off guard. At this moment, not only were the people on the huge dojo alarmed, but all of the Ji clan members on the entire Divine Mountain of Beginning were also shocked. What happened? Let's go take a look. Damn it, could it be that someone dares to attack our clan? If one looked down from the sky, they could clearly see that from different directions on the Divine Mountain of Beginning, many Ji clan members had turned into surging streams of light and were rushing towards the central divine palace. Every Ji clan member's face was filled with shock and anger. Since ancient times, the Ji clan had existed in the ninth heaven. Its power was enough to rank in the top 5 of the 12 eternal god clans. When had something like this ever happened before? At the same time, in the sky above the collapsed central divine palace, Lin Sun stood in the air, millions of rays of light flowing around him, making him look like a ruler of the great Tao. In the distance, Ji Xiaoyun and Ji Beifeng stood side by side, their faces dark and ashen, their eyes full of anger and killing intent. The destruction of the central divine palace didn't matter, but the other eternal god clan guests who had come to attend the banquet had all died. This was what angered them. Boom! The world shook. The two sides facing each other in the void exuded a terrifying aura of the eternal realm, disturbing the wind and clouds, causing the sun and moon to dim. The people who had fled into the distance a long time ago all shivered in extreme shock. The eternal realm. the one who had charged into the central divine palace alone, was actually a great eternal realm figure. All of this in front of him showed that the Ji clan would suffer a disaster today. I was really blind before. The old man in the python robe was shocked. When he thought of how he had arrogantly and shamelessly despised Lin Sun when he first saw him, he felt like he had survived a disaster. If the other party had been ruthless at that time, how could he have survived? Don't worry, everyone. Today I will only kill those who deserve to be killed. I will definitely not make things difficult for others. Of course, when the battle starts, unrelated people should stay far away. Otherwise, don't blame me if you get involved. Lin Sun's indifferent voice resounded between heaven and earth. Saying such words in the territory of the Ji clan made Ji Xiaoyun's face even more livid. Lin Sun, don't be so arrogant. As he spoke, he urged the purple gold pagoda to attack Lin Sun from a distance. Boom! The violet gold pagoda soared through the sky, its might incomparably powerful. Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and with a bang, the purple gold pagoda was shaken away again. Under the impact, Ji Xiaoyun's figure shook for a while. His expression changed in disbelief. He was in existence at the perfection stage of the transcendent realm, and he'd even attacked with his full strength, yet he was unable to shake Lin Sun at all. How could he accept this? At this moment, the surrounding area was in an uproar. He is Lin Sun, the Yuanqing Pavilion Master of Yuan Church. He has already attained eternal Tao? Heavens, he's famous in the 9 heavens domains. To think that such a heaven-defying and ruthless person would actually kill his way here. No wonder he's so domineering. It's him. People finally realized that they had seen through Lin Sun's identity. They couldn't calm down and screamed. Lin Sun. He was the most legendary and peerless ruthless person in the eternal true world in the past 100 years. Who would not know him? All of you, leave this place immediately. Do not come any closer. Ji Xiaoyun suddenly sensed that many Ji clansmen were rushing over from all directions, and his heart immediately tensed up. He knew better than anyone else that it was impossible for others to get involved in a battle between Eternal Realm cultivators. If they were affected, they would definitely die. Ji Xiaoyun did not want the Ji clan to suffer heavy casualties. Instantly, in the distance, many Ji clan members turned around and left before they could even get close to them. Clearly, they had realized that the situation was bad. Lin Sun did not stop them. The divine level order around the divine mountain of beginnings was under his control, so he would not let anyone escape. He took a step into the air and charged towards Ji Xiaoyun. If you have any tricks up your sleeves, just use them. Boom! He stretched out his hand and made a grabbing motion. The eternal laws that filled the sky gathered together and turned into a huge hand that covered the sky. It moved to envelop Ji Xiaoyun. Before the power of the palm even reached him, Ji Xiaoyun felt a stabbing pain all over his body. His heart sank. He realized that even though he was in existence at the perfection stage of the transcendent realm, he was still far inferior to Lin Sun. Ji Xiaoyun made a prompt decision and let out a loud shout. Rise! Boom! A verdant mountain appeared out of thin air. It was covered in dense eternal laws and exuded an ancient and desolate aura. This was the most precious treasure of the Ji clan, Shi Ji Mountain. This was a precious treasure born from the divine level order. It had been nurtured by the sages of the Ji clan for generations, and its power far surpassed that of ordinary eternal Tao soldiers. Dong! When Lin Sun's huge hand slammed down, the mountain suddenly burst forth with a monstrous green light. However, in just an instant it let out a wail and was sent flying by the palm. It smashed into the void, causing it to collapse and rumble. Having been implicated, Ji Xiaoyun coughed up blood, and his expression became even more unsightly. This Lin Sun. What terrifying combat strength! Kill! At this moment, Ji Beifeng attacked brazenly. A layer of golden armor that was as thin as a cicada's wings appeared on his body. He held a golden trident in his hand, and eternal laws interweaved all over his body. Boom! As his trident swept out, a terrifying phenomenon instantly erupted. The sky collapsed and the earth caved in, ghosts wailed and wolves howled, and all chaos collapsed. It was ridiculously powerful. However, such a long-awaited full-force attack was easily broken by a palm when it approached Lin Sun. The terrifying phenomenon collapsed and dissipated like a bubble. Immediately after, Lin Sun's figure flashed in the air and suddenly appeared in front of Ji Beifeng. His palm and fingers suddenly grabbed out. The power of this grab was so domineering that it made people despair. It crushed Ji Beifeng's resistance in a destructive manner, and the golden armor on his body suddenly collapsed and burst open. When Ji Beifeng wanted to dodge, his throat was already firmly locked by Lin Sun. As the power of Lin Sun's palm spread, Ji Beifeng's cultivation was fiercely suppressed and imprisoned, and he could no longer move. Looking at his face again, it was already full of horror and confusion, as if he couldn't believe that he would be subdued so quickly. With one blow, Ji Beifeng was suppressed. Such a scene also shocked everyone. They were all dumbfounded and stunned. Lin Sun's invincible figure became the most stunning light in the world. There will be more later. Chapter 31:18. Ji Beifeng. In the eyes of billions of creatures, he is no different from the legendary supreme god. He is an existence at the great perfection of the ninth heaven. But at this time, he was captured by Lin Sun. Anyone who witnessed this scene was deeply shocked and their minds went blank. They couldn't imagine how an eternal realm existence could be so weak. It was even more unimaginable how terrifying Lin Sun's combat power was to be able to do this so easily. Everything seemed too terrifying. Bang! Lin Sun raised his hand and stuffed Ji Beifeng, whose face was full of horror and confusion, into the abyssal sword cauldron. Then he looked at Ji Xiaoyun in the distance. At this moment, Ji Xiaoyun's face had completely changed. Besides being shocked and angry, he also felt a bone-chilling fear. Lin Sun's strength had undoubtedly subverted his expectations and made him feel that something was wrong. Why hadn't he appeared after causing such a big commotion? Ji Xiaoyun was anxious. Without he couldn't control the divine order of the clan to kill the enemy, and with his strength alone, it was impossible for him to be Lin Sun's opponent. But Lin Sun said indifferently, "Are you waiting for this treasure?" With that, a dark green jade ruler appeared in his hand, exuding a tyrannical aura of order. Ji Xiaoyun's face suddenly turned pale, and he exclaimed, "How can my clan's divine origin be controlled by you? Could it be?" His scalp was numb, and he guessed that the reason why he hadn't appeared for a long time was most likely that he had been suppressed by Lin Sun. Boom! Just as Ji Xiaoyun's mind was in turmoil, Lin Sun had already made his move. The dark green jade ruler in his hand struck out across the air. Suddenly, a divine light condensed and turned into a thick dark green thundercloud, exuding a destructive aura. Lin Sun's own combat power was already strong enough to defy the natural order, let alone now that he had used the power of the divine order. At this moment, Ji Xiaoyun felt a fatal threat. Without hesitation, he displayed the strongest trump card that he had been reluctant to use. Buzz! A verdant leaf appeared in the void. The leaf was originally the size of a finger, but when it appeared in the void, it suddenly grew countless times larger, as if it had turned into a green world. At the center of this world formed from leaves, a figure surged into appearance. The figure wore a green robe and a silk scarf, and he was carefree like an immortal in the clouds. Moreover, his entire body seethed with an ethereal aura of eternity. Ji Qi-feng. The Ji clan was a boundless realm, eternal existence, and what appeared at this moment was a Dharma idol of his will. As he appeared, he flicked his finger. Boom! The oppressive dark blue thunderclouds dispersed and disappeared. Ji Qingfeng glanced around and looked at Lin Sun with a terrifying chill in his eyes. I didn't expect that a remnant of Fang Siyuan would come to my Ji clan and take away the origin of order of my clan. He obviously recognized Lin Sun. At this moment, the experts from afar all gasped when they saw Ji Qingfeng. Ji Qingfeng. If one were to say that Ji Beifeng was an unreachable deity in the eyes of billions of people in the world, then Ji Qingfeng, this boundless realm existence, was a powerhouse in the eternal realm, a supreme overlord who had set foot on the ultimate stage of the eternal Tao path. Even if he was just a Dharma idol of his will, his power was powerful enough to make existences in the exceeding rules realm feel despair. Those Ji clansmen were all excited, and the anger and gloom in their hearts were swept away. Many people's eyes turned red and they cried tears of joy, seeing the hope of turning the situation around. Old ancestor, please make a move and kill this bastard. Ji Shaoyun cupped his hands and said, I naturally won't tolerate this kid's survival. Ji Qingfeng's aura became more and more terrifying. As he stood there casually, the image of the world appeared, making him seem like a supreme being of the heavens. Is that so? Then I really want to see it. Lin Sun revealed a faint look of ridicule. Back then, Yang Chantian's Dharma idol had said something similar, but in the end, Yang Chantian's Dharma idol was forcefully ground to death by him. Tut! Ji Qingfeng didn't waste any time and waved his sleeves. The world was turned upside down here, and the great Tao was in disorder. It was as if time and space had been reversed, and everything showed a scene of chaos and destruction. Just the eternal power that belonged to the boundless realm made Ji Shaoyun feel suffocated. He avoided it at once, and his heart became more and more excited. Under such circumstances, how could Lin Sun have a chance to be fierce? He must be killed. In the chaotic world that seemed to be collapsing, 4 sword intents condensed in front of Ji Qingfeng. They were cyan, red, white, and black respectively. The 4 sword intents circulated according to the 4 symbols square formation, emitting completely different and terrifying power. It was condensed by the boundless law, and it was no different from the sword Tao. Go! Ji Qingfeng waved his sleeves. Clang! The cyan sword qi swept out, and in the vast sword intent, there seemed to be a green dragon coming into the world. When it moved gracefully, it stirred up the heavens and crushed all the Tao. Lin Sun's eyes lit up. He could feel the pressure from the sword, but it didn't surprise him. Instead, it made him happy. Last time, when he dealt with Yang Chantian's Dharma idol, he and the 4 Tao forms attacked together with all their strength to obliterate it. At that time, he was at the early stage of the transcendent realm. But now, he was at the late stage of the transcendent realm, and his combat strength was more than twice as strong as when he killed Yang Chantian's Dharma idol. Go! Without hesitation, Lin Sun exerted his utmost combat strength. With a pinch of his palm and fingers, a strand of sword qi condensed between his fingers and suddenly shot out. This strike was branded with his eternal laws, and it contained the profundities of rebirth. When it flashed out, it was like a wisp of gray and hazy flowing light, yet it revealed an all-powerful imposing aura. Bang! The 2 sword intents collided in the void, and it was like 2 supreme eternal laws were fighting fiercely. A terrifying roar resounded, and the surging power of the law was like the eruption of 100,000 volcanoes. Whereas under Ji Qingfeng's shocked gaze, his azure-colored sword insight actually disintegrated inch by inch amidst a wave of explosive bangs, collapsing and disintegrating. His face darkened and he waved his sleeves. Clang! 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 The white, red, and black sword intents slashed out at the same time. The white sword intent surged into the form of an enormous white tiger that stepped in the starry sky and roared. The red sword intent contained a vermilion bird that flapped its gorgeous wings and smelted everything in the world. The black sword intent contained a black tortoise that raised its head and swung its tail, causing the earth to shake and the great Tao to collapse. The three supreme sword intents were branded with the power of the law, and they surged into appearance beyond imagination. The entire divine mountain of beginning was covered by a terrifying aura of destruction. When these three swords slashed out, all the cultivators in different areas felt a stabbing pain in their hearts. A vast expanse of whiteness appeared before their eyes, and they felt as if they had fallen into an abyss and were filled with despair and helplessness. This was too terrifying. It was as if the ruler of the heavens was furious and intended to cleanse the world. At the same time, Lin soon stepped forward in the sky, and his body emanated a dazzling and shocking light that illuminated the heavens and the earth. His fingers moved ceaselessly. Clang, clang, clang. Strand after strand of sword chi converged madly like tidewater, and then they densely covered the sky as they whistled out. They seemed like a torrential rain that raged through the heavens and the earth, and also like a surging and roaring ocean. The obscure and miraculous profundities of nirvana were deduced by Lin Sun to an unprecedented extent, and they completely fused into the dense strand of sword chi. For a time, the sword chi was like the rain and wind that struck the 9 heavens. Rumble, this expanse of the heavens and the earth collapsed as boundless sword intents collided and fought with each other. It seemed as if various supreme energy of the laws were carrying out intense competition, causing the sky to collapse and everything to sink into oblivion. Everything seemed as if it was on the verge of ceasing to exist. Amidst this intense battle that was sufficient to shock the ages, the white tiger was beheaded, the vermilion bird wailed sorrowfully, and the black tortoise shed blood. 3 supreme sword intents were fiercely minced into pieces. Ji Qingfeng's will and dharma manifestation suffered a terrifying impact, and he was ceaselessly struck by the boundless sword intents, causing numerous horrifying marks to appear on his body. However, he was the eternal will manifestation of the boundless realm after all. Even though he suffered the attacks of the sword intents that blotted out the heavens and the earth, he was still extremely tyrannical, and he forcefully broke through the boundless sword rain as he charged towards Lin Sun. Boom! His will manifestation became boundlessly tall, and he was completely enraged. When he attacked, the sweeping energy of the laws transformed into various supreme abilities and were released. If it was any other powerhouse in the exceeding rules realm, they would have been annihilated countless times. However, Lin Sun didn't dodge or evade. Without the slightest hesitation, he took out the abyssal sword cauldron and took the initiative to meet Ji Qingfeng's attack head-on. Kill! The two of them fought fiercely above the 9 heavens, and they fought until the heavens and the earth were overturned and the sun and moon dimmed. If one looked carefully, under the circumstances that Lin Sun didn't utilize his great Dao clone, he actually occupied the upper hand in this extremely intense battle. Every strike of his sword caused a violent impact on Ji Qingfeng's will manifestation, and no matter how powerful the energy of the laws and abilities Ji Qingfeng grasped were, they were all firmly suppressed. It was to the extent that in Ji Xiaoyun's eyes, Ji Qingfeng's will manifestation that he viewed as a life-saving straw was completely overshadowed by Lin Sun's might. How is this possible? Ji Xiaoyun's expression changed, and he was shocked and enraged to the extreme. A young man in the exceeding rules realm was actually so heaven-defying that he could suppress the will manifestation of a boundless realm. This was absolutely something that had never happened since ancient times. If word of this got out, even those eternal realm existences would probably not believe it. Kill. In just a short while, Ji Qingfeng's will manifestation started to go all out. His expression was grim and livid, and he attacked recklessly, looking like he wanted to perish together with Lin Sun. But how could Lin Sun let him do as he wished? He took a deep breath, and the 4 great Tao forms rushed out together, surrounding Lin Sun together with his original body, and all of them displayed their strongest technique. Die! Lin Sun and his clone shouted in unison. Boom! Ji Qingfeng's will manifestation immediately suffered a fatal blow, and it shattered into pieces, exploding with a loud bang, turning into a sky full of light rain. A boundless realm will manifestation was blown up in a head-on clash just like that. Looking at Lin Sun, he was unscathed, and his momentum was like that of a god. Compared to the hard work of killing Yang Sun's will manifestation last time, it was obviously much easier this time. If Lin Sun was not worried that the power of Ji Qingfeng's desperate attack would be too great a threat, he would not need to use his other clones at all to destroy this old guy's will manifestation. And at this moment, when he saw this scene, Ji Xiaoyun, who was far away, almost had his eyeballs fall out, and he cried out involuntarily, "Old ancestor!" His voice was filled with anger, frustration, unwillingness, and horror. He could not believe that Ji Qingfeng's will manifestation had been destroyed just like that, and he could not accept all this. More updates, asking for tickets? Chapter 31:19. The divine order was seized, and Ji He's fate was unknown. Ji Beifeng was captured in one blow. And now, the boundless realm eternal existence Ji Qingfeng's Dharma was destroyed. This series of blows made Ji Xiaoyun, an eternal existence, feel like he was about to collapse. How could this be? How could this be? The dignified Ji God clan was ranked in the top 5 of the eternal God clan in the 9th heaven. For countless years, they had always been like a high and mighty god, overlooking all living beings. But today, there was a possibility that they would be destroyed. And all of this was the work of one person, Lin Sun. At this moment, the countless cultivators in the distance were stunned on the spot. They'd lost their minds, and their faces were covered in astonishment and wonder. No one would have thought that the Dharma of an existence like Ji Qingfeng would be destroyed like this. No one would have thought that Lin Sun alone could suppress the entire Ji God clan. This was incredible. Since ancient times, nothing like this had ever happened, because this was the 9th heaven, the world of the 12 eternal God clans. But today, Lin Sun's appearance seemed to have broken all previous understandings and completely overturned the structure of the 9th heaven. Is this going to change the world? Countless people were confused. This is too terrifying. How can there be someone like Lin Sun in this world? While everyone was shocked, Lin Sun stopped in midair and gazed at Ji Xiaoyun in the distance. He said, "Don't worry, the Ji clan won't be annihilated just like that, but the price they should pay will definitely not be small." His words were casual, but they were like a sharp awl that stabbed into Ji Xiaoyun's heart. "My Ji clan will never be destroyed." Ji Xiaoyun's eyes were bloodshot as he roared. Lin Sun smiled. "You're right. It's only a part of the Ji clan that should die." "What do you mean?" Ji Xiaoyun's expression was livid. "If I said that I came this time to vent Senior Shi's anger, would you believe me?" Lin Sun said. "Shi?" Ji Xiaoyun was stunned at first, then said in disbelief, "My clan's Ji Shi?" "That's right." Lin Sun nodded. "For the sake of forming a marriage alliance with the Taihao clan, all of you old bastards didn't hesitate to force Senior Shi into marriage. How despicable and shameless. If I hadn't rushed over in time this time, then Senior Shi's entire life would have probably been destroyed by all of you old bastards." In the end, Lin Sun's eyes were full of killing intent. Ji Xiaoyun, on the other hand, was completely stunned. He had thought that Lin Sun was here for revenge. Who would have thought that it was related to Ji Shi's marriage? "Is it because of this that you started a massacre in my Ji clan?" Ji Xiaoyun said. Lin Sun shook his head. "You're wrong. Your Ji clan should rejoice. If it weren't for Senior Shi, your clan would have been uprooted today, erased from this world." Ji Xiaoyun's expression changed indeterminately, and he said sadly after a while, "Does that mean my clan should be grateful to you?" Lin Sun said, "That's not necessary. As long as you old things die, it's the greatest blessing for your Ji family." Ji Xiaoyun said in a daze, I see. If Lin Sun had come purely for revenge, he would not have regretted it. However, when he found out that Lin Sun had come for Ji Shi, he could not help but regret it. If he had known that Ji Shi and Lin Sun were so close, how could such a disaster have befallen the Ji clan? Who would have treated Ji Shi like that? However, no matter how much he regretted it now, it was useless. Lin Sun. Ji Xiaoyun suddenly raised his eyes and looked at Lin Sun. His expression had already become abnormally calm. No matter why you came this time, today's enmity is destined to be irreconcilable. Don't forget that many of my Ji clan's predecessors went to Kunlun ruins a long time ago. Perhaps some of them died, but there will definitely be some who are safe and sound. If they knew what happened today, all of this would definitely not end well. Lin Sun nodded and said, "When I destroyed the Yang clan, they said something similar." Destroy the Yang clan. Lin Sun inadvertently revealed a fact that caused the last trace of perseverance in Ji Xiaoyun's heart to collapse. If it was before the battle, Ji Xiaoyun would not have believed these words, but now he had no choice but to believe it. Even their Ji clan had suffered such a great disaster, let alone the Yang clan that was inferior to them? For a moment Ji Xiaoyun was silent. After a long time, he let out a long sigh and said, "I've cultivated all my life. I originally thought that the only opponent for an eternal divine clan like my Ji clan could only be the calamity of an era. I never thought that there would be an existence like you in this world. What's funny is that if it weren't for the calamity of an era, if it weren't for the fact that those old ancestors had already gone to Kunlun ruins, how could my Ji clan have suffered today's calamity? Time? Life? A desolate, sorrowful, and bitter voice echoed between heaven and earth. Lin Sun seemed to have sensed something. He suddenly made a move and grabbed at Ji Xiaoyun from afar, but he was a step too late. Just then, Ji Xiaoyun's figure silently collapsed, turning into strands of light rain that scattered and completely annihilated in the void. Lin Sun could not help but raise his eyebrows. The people who had been watching all of this from afar were stunned. Ji Xiaoyun, such an existence in the great perfection of the realm of rules, had chosen to commit suicide at the last moment. How desperate must he be to do this? If there was a glimmer of hope to reverse the situation, how could he do this? There was no doubt that Ji Xiaoyun had completely understood that facing an opponent like Lin Sun, he had no chance of survival. Therefore, he chose to commit suicide. Perhaps it was to be able to preserve the last trace of dignity at the time of death. For a moment, the world was deathly silent. They were all shocked by this scene, and there was an indescribable emotion brewing in everyone's heart. And when they looked at Lin Sun again, their eyes, expressions, and minds were all filled with uncontrollable awe and shock. Today, Lin Sun came alone and stepped into the central shrine alone, setting off a monstrous killing calamity. None of the distinguished guests from the other eternal divine clans survived. Those immortal figures of the Ji clan were also destroyed. Even the central shrine was destroyed in an instant. If this wasn't shocking enough, then Ji Beifeng was captured alive, Ji Qingfeng's Dharma form was destroyed, and Ji Xiaoyun committed suicide. All of this was sufficient to shake the ages and shock the entire world. It could be said to be something that had never happened since the start of time. Lin Sun, this successor of Mount Mind and Heart, the pavilion master of the Yuan sect, had overturned the Ji clan and overturned the situation of the world by himself. Perhaps it was because of the experience of destroying the Yang clan of the Eternal Divine Clan, but Lin Sun didn't feel too much about it. When he saw Ji Xiaoyun choose to commit suicide, he even felt a little regretful. If he could capture this old fellow and refine him with the profound meaning of the 5 sequences of the ultimate, he would be able to obtain many eternal divine objects. Lin Sun shook his head and didn't think too much about it, because it wasn't time for all of this to end. Lin Sun stood in the void, his clothes fluttering. With a thought, the pale blue jade ruler rose into the air and suddenly turned into ripples of order that spread out. At this moment, the scene of every area and every corner of the divine mountain of beginning appeared in Lin Sun's mind. See the big from the small, and see the small from the big. The divine mountain of beginning was extremely large, covering an area of 30,000 miles. But in Lin Sun's mind, it was like a sand table with a radius of 1 foot. Everything in the sand table was clearly understood by him. With his current realm, even if he was facing a macro world, as long as he used the power of the rules of heaven and earth in this macro world, he could capture everything in this macro world in an instant. Of course, the premise was that the power of the rules of this macro world didn't backfire on his senses. At this time, in different areas of the divine mountain of beginning, many people of the G clan were terrified and completely in a mess. Many people tried to escape from the divine mountain of beginning, but to their despair, they found that they had nowhere to escape under the cover of the divine order. What should we do? Does the heaven want our G clan to die? Someone shouted in grief and indignation. Damn it, how could this be, how could this be? Someone looked terrified. That damn Lin Sun, sooner or later, he will be punished. Someone gnashed his teeth and cursed. Lin Sun had a panoramic view of all these scenes. He didn't hesitate to use the divine order and set off a bloody purge in the divine mountain of beginning. Before, Lin Sun had already learned a lot of things from the memory of Ji Moliai's spirit. At this moment, those people he killed were all the strong people of the Ji clan who opposed Ji Wangtu. Of course, Lin Sun wouldn't kill innocent people. He just destroyed the cultivation of those above the Emperor realm. Just after a short while, all the people of the Ji clan who were Lin Sun's targets in the divine mountain of beginning were killed. Then, he put away the source of order which had turned into a cyan jade ruler. When he was about to return to Shi's residence, he suddenly thought of one thing. The next moment, Lin Sun's voice sounded between heaven and earth. Everyone, I'll have to inconvenience all of you for now, and I'll naturally let all of you leave after the Taihao clan's escort team arrives tomorrow. There were thousands of guests who came to the Ji clan to celebrate the wedding. They had long been scared out of their wits by the bloody scenes that had happened before. They were like ants on a hot pan, not knowing how Lin Sun would deal with them. When they heard Lin Sun's voice, all of them felt relaxed and relieved as if they had survived a disaster. It turns out that Pavilion Master Lin isn't as cruel and ruthless as the rumors say. If you kill innocent people, I'm afraid it's impossible for you to be recognized by the ancestral court of Yuan religion. This is called doing something and not doing something. With Pavilion Master Lin's current status, how could he care about small fries like us? The wedding procession of the Taihao clan. I'm afraid it's going to be unlucky, people discussed with undisguised reverence for Lin Sun in their words. Even some old monsters who had lived for tens of thousands of years would call him Senior Lin, Pavilion Master Lin, Lord Lin. I've finally opened my eyes today. I've witnessed a great event that can shock the world and be passed down for generations. The old man in the python robe was so excited that he couldn't control himself. It was he who brought Lin Sun into the divine mountain of beginning. He was worried that he would be implicated by Lin Sun. But now he felt an indescribable sense of exhilaration. It was a kind of feeling of pride.